You all so $1 million. The voice rang out across the lavish wedding, silencing all 300 guests. I stood there in a cheap navy blue dress, clutching my sobbing 7-year-old son, while my sister auctioned us off like a charity item. My name is Eleanor Griffin. 7 years ago, I was the daughter-in-law cast out by my husband's powerful family. 3 years ago, I lost my father, the only person in my family who ever truly loved me. And that night, at my sister's wedding, I was turned into a joke for 300 of the wealthiest people in town. But that was also the night I learned the truth. My father had left his entire multi-million-dollar estate to me and my son. And the man who just bid $1 million? He brought the real will, with proof that my mother and sister had stolen everything. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you've ever had to stand up for your family. Because trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming. This isn't just a story about money or revenge. It's the story of how a single mom went from pouring coffee to becoming a CEO. And more importantly, about the power of forgiveness when you have every reason to destroy. Winter came early to Boston that year. I remember standing at the coffee shop window watching the November snow fall like tiny promises of change I couldn't yet understand. My breath fogged the glass as I wiped it clean for the third time that afternoon. The Maple Street Cafe wasn't much. Just a small corner shop in a neighborhood where people drove cars worth more than I'd make in 5 years. But it was warm, and Janet, the owner, understood what it meant to be a single mother. "Eleanor, why don't you head out early today?" Janet's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "Noah gets out of school soon, doesn't he?" I turned to her, grateful as always for her kindness. "Thank you, Janet. I really appreciate it." "Go on," she said, waving me off with a smile. "That boy needs his mama." I hung up my apron and grabbed my worn coat from the back room. 7 years. That's how long I'd been doing this dance. Work, pick up Noah, homework, dinner, bed. Repeat. 7 years since David died in that car accident, leaving me with a 6-month-old baby and a heart so broken I thought it would never heal. But you know what? Hearts are funny things. They mend themselves when you're not looking, especially when you have a 7-year-old boy who thinks you hung the moon. The walk to our apartment was only 15 minutes, but the cold made it feel longer. I stopped at the mailbox, my fingers already numb as I fumbled with the key. Bills, ads, and then something different. An elegant cream envelope with my name written in gold calligraphy. I knew what it was before I even opened it. Inside our small apartment, I set the envelope on the kitchen counter and stared at it while I waited for the kettle to boil. The invitation was exactly what I expected. Victoria was getting married. My younger sister, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our mother's eyes, was marrying Richard Hamilton. Of course she was. Richard's family owned half the commercial real estate in Boston. It was a match made in society page heaven. You and Noah Griffin are cordially invited to celebrate the union of Victoria Griffin and Richard Hamilton. I read the words 3 times before I heard Noah's key in the door. "Mom!" He burst in like sunshine, all energy and gap-toothed grins. "Guess what? I got 100 on my math test." I scooped him up, invitation forgotten for the moment. "That's amazing, baby. I'm so proud of you." Ms. Anderson said I was the only one who got all the word problems right. He continued, his dark eyes, David's eyes, sparkling with pride. We settled into our evening routine. Homework at the small dining table, mac and cheese for dinner, the fancy kind with real cheese because it was Friday. And then Noah found the invitation while I was washing dishes. "What's this, Mom?" He held up the card, sounding out the fancy script. "Aunt Victoria's getting married?" My hands stilled in the soapy water. "Yes, baby, she is." "Can we go?" His excitement was immediate and pure. "I've never been to a wedding." I dried my hands slowly, buying time. How could I explain to my 7-year-old that we were the family members nobody wanted to see? That his grandmother, Martha Griffin, had barely spoken to us since my father died 3 years ago? That Victoria only invited us because it would look bad if she didn't? "I don't know, Noah. It's going to be very fancy and—" "Please, Mom." He looked up at me with those eyes that were so much like his father's it hurt. I want to see Aunt Victoria in a wedding dress. And maybe Grandma will be there? The hope in his voice broke me. Despite everything, Noah still believed in family. He still thought that blood meant something, that surely his grandmother and aunt loved him even if they never showed it. Okay, I heard myself saying, we'll go. That night, after Noah was asleep, I sat in our tiny living room with my father's photo album. William Griffin had been many things. A successful businessman, a demanding boss, a complicated husband. But to me, he'd been the parent who saw me. Really saw me. While Mom fawned over Victoria's beauty and social graces, Dad would sit with me while I did homework, praising my good grades and practical mind. "You're the smart one, Eleanor," he'd say. "Don't let anyone tell you different." When he died of a heart attack 3 years ago, I lost more than a father. I lost my advocate, my defender, the one person in the family who made me feel like I belonged. The will reading had been swift and simple. Everything to Martha, with the understanding that she would take care of the girls. Victoria got her trust fund topped up immediately. I got nothing. Mom said it was because I was independent and didn't need help. The next morning, I called Victoria. My hands shook as I dialed, but I kept my voice steady. "Victoria, it's Eleanor. Thank you for the invitation. Noah and I will be there." The silence on the other end lasted just long enough to be insulting. "Oh, how nice. Mother will be pleased." We both knew that was a lie. "Just remember," she continued, her voice taking on that particular tone I knew so well, "it's going to be quite formal. Richard's family is very particular about appearances. You do have something appropriate to wear, don't you?" The implication hung heavy between us. Poor Eleanor, the coffee shop worker. Poor Eleanor, the single mother. Poor Eleanor, who couldn't possibly have anything suitable for high society. "We'll be appropriately dressed," I said quietly. "Well, good. The ceremony is at 2, but do try to arrive early. We wouldn't want you sneaking in late and causing a distraction." After I hung up, I stood in my bedroom doorway looking at my meager closet. She was right, of course. I had nothing suitable for a society wedding, but I'd figure it out. I always did. I thought about calling the whole thing off a dozen times over the next few weeks. But every time I almost picked up the phone, Noah would mention the wedding. He was so excited, marking off days on the calendar, asking questions about what weddings were like, wondering if there would be cake. "Do you think Grandma will dance with me?" he asked one night. I tucked his covers tighter around him. "I don't know, baby. We'll see." "I miss Grandpa," he said suddenly. "Do you think he would have danced with me?" "Oh, Noah." I smoothed his hair back. "Grandpa would have danced with you all night long, and he would have." Despite his gruff exterior, Dad had a soft spot for Noah that surprised everyone. In those last months before his heart attack, he'd started visiting more often, bringing Noah books and toys, sitting on our floor to play trains even though his knees protested. "This boy is special, Eleanor," he'd told me during what turned out to be his last visit. "Don't let anyone make him feel otherwise." Looking back now, I wonder if he knew something, if he sensed what was coming. But at the time, I just thought he was being a doting grandfather. The week before the wedding, I did something I'd sworn I wouldn't do. I dipped into my emergency fund, the money I'd been saving in case the car broke down or Noah needed medical care, and bought us clothes. Nothing fancy, nothing that would compete with the designer gowns and custom suits I knew would fill that ballroom. Just a simple navy dress for me, and a neat little suit for Noah. "Do I look handsome, Mom?" Noah asked, modeling his outfit in the department store mirror. "The handsomest," I assured him, even as my heart broke a little at the price tag. Winter had settled over Boston like a thick blanket by then, and I knew that whatever happened at that wedding, our lives were about to change. I just had no idea how much. The morning of the wedding, I woke at 5. Not because I needed to. We didn't have to leave until noon, but because my stomach was in knots. I made coffee and sat at our small kitchen table, watching the snow fall outside. It was like the whole city was dressed in white for Victoria's big day. Noah found me there an hour later, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Is it time yet?" "Not yet, baby. Want some breakfast?" We made pancakes together, him standing on a chair to reach the counter, carefully measuring ingredients like it was the most important job in the world. He chattered about school, about his friend Marcus who could burp the alphabet, about everything except the wedding. But I could see it in the way he kept glancing at his suit hanging on the door. He was nervous too. "Mom," he asked as we cleaned up, "why don't we see Grandma and Aunt Victoria very much?" I'd been dreading this question. How do you explain adult cruelty to a child who still believes in the goodness of people? It's complicated, Noah. Sometimes families grow apart. But we're still family, right? Always, I said, hugging him tight, no matter what. The truth was messier than that, of course. The growing apart had started long before Dad died, maybe even before David's accident. I'd always been the odd one out in the Griffin family. Victoria was beautiful, charming, everything Mother wanted in a daughter. She knew how to work a room, how to make people feel special while keeping them at arm's length. She'd gone to the right schools, joined the right sororities, dated the right boys. I'd been different, quieter, more interested in books than parties. I'd met David at the community college where we were both taking night classes, him studying to be an electrician, me working on my business degree. Mother had been horrified. Victoria had laughed behind her hand at family dinners while David tried to make conversation about baseball or his work. Only Dad had welcomed him. "He's a good man," he'd said after that first awkward Sunday dinner. "He works hard and he loves you. That's what matters." When we got married at City Hall with just Dad and David's brother as witnesses, Mother didn't come. She was sick that day. Victoria was traveling, but Dad was there, slipping me an envelope with a check that kept us afloat those first few months. Then David died, and everything changed. I was 22, suddenly alone with a baby, drowning in grief and bills. The life insurance barely covered the funeral. I'd had to drop out of school, take any job I could find. Pride kept me from asking for help for months. But when Noah got sick and I couldn't afford the medicine, I finally called home. "You made your choices, Eleanor," Mother had said, her voice cold over the phone. "I told you marrying beneath you would end badly." "He's your grandson," I'd said, Noah crying in the background. "He's sick." There was a long pause, then, "I'll speak to your father." Dad showed up an hour later with medicine, groceries, and enough cash to cover the next month's rent. He didn't say much, just held Noah while I cried. After that, he came by when he could. Always when Mother was at her bridge club or Victoria was at some society function. He'd play with Noah, slip me money, remind me that I was stronger than I knew. "Your mother and sister," he'd said once, watching Noah stack blocks. "They see the world a certain way. They can't help it. But don't let them make you small, Eleanor. You're worth 10 of those society people they're so impressed by." I believed him. Right up until the will reading, I believed him. Getting ready for the wedding, I tried to push those memories away. I helped Noah with his tie, combed his hair until it lay flat. A losing battle. He'd inherited David's cowlick. And then got myself ready. The navy dress looked better than I'd expected. Simple, but elegant. I even put on makeup, something I rarely bothered with anymore. "You look pretty, Mom," Noah said, and my heart squeezed. "Thank you, baby. You ready for this?" He nodded, then hesitated. "Mom, what if nobody talks to us?" "Then we'll talk to each other," I said, forcing a smile. "We're a team, remember?" The taxi ride to the hotel felt like traveling to another world. The Regent Plaza was the kind of place I'd only seen from the outside. All gleaming marble and doormen in uniforms nicer than anything in my closet. Noah's eyes went wide as we walked through the lobby. "It's like a castle," he whispered. The wedding coordinator, a sharp-faced woman with a clipboard, looked us up and down when we gave our names. "Griffin? Yes, you're at table 17. She didn't need to say it was the table by the kitchen doors. I could tell by her tone. The ceremony space was breathtaking. White roses everywhere. Gold ribbons draping the chairs, a string quartet playing softly. We slipped into seats in the back row, trying to be invisible. I spotted Mother at the front, resplendent in champagne silk, holding court with Richard's parents. She didn't look our way. Other guests filed in, all perfectly coiffed and jeweled. I recognized some faces from the society pages, others from long ago family events when Dad was alive and we were still pretending to be a united family. A few did double takes when they saw me, whispering behind their hands. "Is that Eleanor Griffin? I thought she disappeared after William died." "Is that her son? Poor thing." I kept my eyes forward, my hand on Noah's knee to keep him from fidgeting. He was transfixed by the spectacle, the music, the sheer grandeur of it all. When the music changed and everyone stood, Victoria appeared like something out of a magazine. Her dress probably cost more than I made in a year. Layers of silk and lace, a train that seemed to go on forever, diamonds at her throat and ears. She was radiantly beautiful, every inch the society bride. "She looks like a princess," Noah breathed. She did. And as she passed our row without a glance, I wondered if princesses ever thought about their servant sisters in the back row. The ceremony was elegant and soulless. Victoria and Richard exchanged vows that sounded like they'd been written by a lawyer. The kiss was perfunctory. The applause was polite. And then we were all filing out, heading to the reception ballroom on the top floor. I should have known then. Should have felt the trap closing. But I was too focused on Noah, on making sure he was okay, on surviving the next few hours. We found our table, 17, just as promised, tucked in a corner with a clear view of absolutely nothing important. The other guests at our table were distant relatives and plus ones who didn't quite fit anywhere else. They made polite conversation at first, asking about Noah, about what I did for work. The moment I mentioned the coffee shop, the conversation died. "How nice," one woman said, the same way you'd compliment a child's finger painting. Noah didn't notice. He was too amazed by the food, course after course of things he'd never tried before. Lobster bisque, filet mignon, vegetables I couldn't even name. He tried everything, eyes wide with wonder. "Can we come to more weddings?" he asked, and despite everything, I laughed. "We'll see, baby." I watched Mother work the room, never coming within 20 feet of our table. Victoria and Richard held court at the head table, surrounded by their wedding party. All thin, beautiful people who looked like they'd stepped out of a catalog. And then the speeches started. Richard's best man went first, telling stories about Harvard and summers on the Cape that might as well have been dispatches from Mars for all I could relate to them. Then Victoria's maid of honor, gushing about shopping trips to Paris and charity galas. I tuned most of it out, focusing on making sure Noah ate something besides cake. Then the music changed. The lights dimmed, except for a spotlight on the head table. Victoria stood, microphone in hand, and my stomach dropped. "Thank you all so much for being here," she began, her voice honey-sweet. "Richard and I are so grateful to share this special day with all of you, our family and dearest friends." Applause. She waited for it to die down, and something in her smile made my skin prickle. "You know, family is such an interesting thing," she continued. "We don't choose them, do we? They're just there, like furniture you inherit from your grandparents. Some pieces fit beautifully in your life, and others you keep in the basement." Nervous laughter rippled through the room. My hand found Noah's under the table. "But tonight, I want to do something special. I want to acknowledge all our family, even the pieces we usually keep hidden away." She turned, and the spotlight swung wild before landing directly on our table. On us. "Ladies and gentlemen, my sister Eleanor and her son Noah." Every head in the room turned. 300 pairs of eyes, all staring. Noah shrank against me. "Stand up, Eleanor!" Victoria called out, her voice bright with false cheer. "Don't be shy." I stayed seated, but the spotlight stayed on us, and the silence grew uncomfortable. Finally, Noah whispered, "Mom?" And I knew we had no choice. We stood. "There we go!" Victoria clapped, and others joined in uncertainly. Now, as you can see, my sister lives a very different life from most of us here. She works in a coffee shop. Isn't that quaint? A griffin serving lattes. The laughter was fuller now, meaner. I felt Noah trembling beside me. And young Noah here, my nephew, growing up without a father. Such a tragedy. Some of you might remember when Eleanor married that... What was he again, Eleanor? An electrician? "Mom," Noah whispered, tears in his voice. "Yes, an electrician. Father was so disappointed, but Eleanor always did like to go her own way. And now here they are, my working-class relatives. It's like having our very own charity case in the family." I started to sit, to pull Noah down with me, but Victoria wasn't done. "Which brings me to tonight's special entertainment." She gestured to the band, who struck up what sounded like auction music. A charity auction, right here, right now. My blood turned to ice. What am I auctioning, you ask? Why, a unique opportunity. One lucky bidder can take home their very own single mother and fatherless child. Think of it, your own personal reminder of how fortunate you are. They can serve coffee at your parties, and little Noah can, I don't know, what do poor children do? Polish shoes? The room erupted. Some people laughed, others looked uncomfortable. A few seemed genuinely shocked, but no one stopped her. Shall we start the bidding at, let's say $1,000? Do I hear 1,000? Victoria. Richard touched her arm, looking uncertain. She shook him off. Come now, don't be shy. They're house-trained, I promise. That's when Mother stood up. For a wild moment, I thought she was going to stop this. Going to remember that I was her daughter, that Noah was her grandson. But then she took the microphone from Victoria, and her smile was worse than my sister's. Let me help, darling, she said. I think you're starting too high. After all, we should be realistic about their value. Let's start at $0. She looked directly at me as she said it. Because honestly, I can't imagine anyone would pay actual money for them. But perhaps someone feeling particularly charitable? Noah was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The laughter felt like physical blows, each one pushing me smaller and smaller. Mom, Noah whispered, please, can we go? Yes, we could go. We could walk out right now, leave these horrible people to their horrible party. I started to move, my arm around Noah. $1 million. The voice came from the back of the room, clear, calm, completely serious. The laughter died instantly. Every head swiveled. The spotlight operator, confused, swung the light wildly before finding the speaker. He was tall, distinguished-looking, with silver-touched hair and an impeccably cut suit. He walked forward with unhurried confidence, and something about him seemed familiar, though I couldn't place it. I'm sorry? Victoria laughed nervously. This is just a joke. I said $1 million. He reached the center of the room. I'll pay $1 million for Ms. Eleanor Griffin and her son. Though I must say the word buy is inappropriate. You can't buy people. You can only recognize their value. And their value is far above anything anyone in this room could afford. Mother's face had gone white. Who are you? The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. James Morrison. I was your husband's attorney, Martha. His real attorney, for matters he didn't trust to the family lawyers. The silence was deafening. I sank back into my chair, pulling Noah with me as my legs gave out. This is ridiculous, Victoria said, but her voice shook. You can't just interrupt a wedding, make a scene, humiliate family members for sport. James's voice was steel wrapped in silk. You're right, one shouldn't do such things. Yet here we are. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. I had hoped to do this privately, but since you've chosen to make a spectacle of Eleanor and Noah, perhaps it's fitting that everyone hear the truth. Get out, Mother snarled. I'll have security. You'll do nothing, James said calmly, because what I have to say concerns the last will and testament of William Griffin, his real will, the one you've been hiding for 3 years. My heart stopped. Around us, guests leaned in, the drama too delicious to resist. Furthermore, James continued, opening the envelope, I have here documentation of every fraudulent transaction you and Victoria have made using Griffin Company funds, every forged signature, every diverted account. You're lying, Victoria said, but all the color had drained from her face. James smiled that cold smile again. Am I? Then you won't mind if Judge Harrison, who I believe is seated at table 12, reviews these documents? An older man I vaguely recognized raised his hand in acknowledgement. The murmur that ran through the crowd was like electricity. But perhaps, James said, his voice carrying easily through the room, we should start with William's letter, the one he wrote to Eleanor and Noah, the one he asked me to read when the time was right. He looked at me then, and his eyes were kind. I believe that time is now. James Morrison stood in the center of that glittering ballroom like a man who'd waited 3 years for this moment, which, I would learn, he had. Before I read William's letter, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room, let me paint a picture. 3 years ago, a man realized he was dying. His heart was failing, and he knew he had perhaps months. This man had 2 daughters and a grandson he adored. But he also had a wife who'd shown her true colors, and a younger daughter who'd learned too well at her mother's knee. Mother stood frozen, her champagne glass forgotten in her hand. Victoria had sunk into her chair, Richard staring at her like he'd never seen her before. "This man came to me," James continued, "not to the family lawyers who'd served the Griffins for decades. Why? Because he'd discovered something that broke his heart. His wife and younger daughter were already planning for his death, already moving money, changing documents, preparing to cut his older daughter and grandson out of everything." "That's slander," Mother found her voice. "I'll sue you for every penny." "With what money, Martha?" James asked mildly. "The money you stole from the company? The accounts you've been draining? Oh yes, I have 3 years of bank records. 3 years of evidence. Did you really think William would leave his daughter and grandson unprotected?" He pulled out a single sheet of paper. "But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, the letter." The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Noah had stopped crying, staring at James with wide eyes. "My dearest Eleanor and Noah," James read. And at the sound of those words in my father's voice, I felt tears start. If you're hearing this, then James has kept his promise, and the truth is finally being told. First, let me say how sorry I am. Sorry that I couldn't protect you while I lived. Sorry that you've had to endure what I know Martha and Victoria have put you through. But mostly, sorry that I was too much of a coward to confront them myself. James paused, letting the words sink in. When he continued, his voice was gentler. "Eleanor, you were always the best of us. Kind where your mother was cruel. Honest where your sister was false. Strong where I was weak. When you married David, I saw how happy he made you, how real your love was. Your mother called it common. I called it beautiful." I was crying now, not caring who saw. Noah reached up and wiped my tears with his small hand, just like I'd done for him so many times. "When David died, I watched you grieve and rebuild. I watched you raise Noah with such love and strength. And I watched your mother and sister turn their backs on you, punish you for not being like them. It shamed me. But I was already sick by then, already running out of time, and I made a choice." The letter rustled as James turned to the next page. "I chose to let them think they'd won. I let them believe the will they saw, leaving everything to Martha, was real. But it wasn't. My real will, my legal will, properly witnessed and notarized, tells a different story." Mother made a sound like a wounded animal. Several guests had their phones out recording everything. "To my wife, Martha Griffin, I leave the mandated spousal minimum and not a penny more. She knows what she did. To my daughter, Victoria Griffin, I leave nothing. She has taken enough already. To my daughter, Eleanor Griffin, and my grandson, Noah Griffin, I leave everything else. The company, the properties, the investments, everything." The gasp that went through the room was like a wave. I couldn't process it, couldn't breathe. "But more than money," James continued reading, "I leave you the truth. Your mother and sister have been stealing from the company for years. They've been preparing to destroy you since long before I died. Every cruel word, every moment of exclusion, every humiliation. It was all part of their plan to make you disappear, to make you small enough that no one would question when you got nothing." He looked up from the letter, his eyes finding Mother and Victoria. "They almost succeeded, but I knew my Eleanor. I knew you would survive whatever they did. And I knew that when the time was right, James would make sure you got what was yours." "This is fake!" Victoria shrieked, standing so fast her chair toppled. "This is all lies! The will was executed 3 years ago. Legal. Binding." "Was it?" James pulled out another document. "Because I have here the real will, dated 6 months after the one you filed. Witnessed by Judge Harrison himself, as well as Dr. Margaret Chen, William's physician, both of whom are here tonight by happy coincidence." The judge stood. "I can confirm I witnessed William Griffin's final will. He was of sound mind and very clear about his wishes." An elegant woman at another table also stood. "As his doctor, I can confirm the same. William knew exactly what he was doing." Richard's father grabbed his son's arm. "We're leaving. Now." "But Dad—" "Now." The older Hamilton was already moving. "This family is poison. The engagement is over." Richard looked at Victoria, and I saw the moment he realized he'd been fooled. Without a word, he followed his father out. Victoria screamed after him, but James wasn't done. "There's more in the letter," he said calmly. "Shall I continue?" "Please," I whispered. It was the first word I'd spoken since this began. "The company is yours, Eleanor. But I know you never wanted it. You wanted to finish your degree to build something of your own. So I've set aside funds for that. For you to go back to school, to become whatever you dream of. For Noah to have every opportunity. For both of you to live without fear or want." He folded the letter carefully. "There's more. Personal things. Things that should be read in private, not in front of people who treat family pain as entertainment." He looked around the room with disgust. "Though I think William would appreciate the irony. You all came here to watch Eleanor be humiliated. Instead, you're witnesses to justice." "I'll fight this," Mother said, her voice low and dangerous. "I'll fight this with every—" "With what?" James cut her off. "The lawyers you can't afford once the accounts are frozen? The connections who are already calculating how to distance themselves from you? Look around, Martha. Your audience is already choosing sides, and it's not yours." He was right. The whispers had started. The social calculations. Mother and Victoria had committed the ultimate sin in their world. They'd been exposed as frauds. James walked over to our table. Up close, I could see the kindness in his eyes, the protective anger on our behalf. "Eleanor," he said gently. "Noah, I'm sorry this happened here, like this. William wanted me to wait, to let them expose themselves. He said when the time came, I'd know. When I heard about tonight, about what they planned..." He shook his head. "I knew." "Is it true?" I asked, my voice barely working. "All of it?" "Every word. You're the sole heir to Griffin Industries. The houses, the investments, all of it. Your mother and sister have been living on stolen money for 3 years. But I never wanted..." "I know." He smiled sadly. "Your father knew too. That's why he made provisions. You don't have to run the company if you don't want to. But it's yours. No one can take it from you again." Noah tugged on my dress. "Mom, does this mean Grandpa really did remember us?" I pulled him close. "Yes, baby, Grandpa remembered us." "Then why did he let them be mean to us for so long?" It was James who answered. "Because sometimes, Noah, you have to let people show who they really are. Your grandfather wanted to make sure that when the truth came out, no one could deny it. Do you understand?" Noah thought about it with that serious expression he got when working through a problem. "Like in my stories, when the bad guy has to confess?" Exactly like that. Around us, the reception was dissolving into chaos. Guests were leaving, staff were hovering uncertainly, and somewhere in the background, Victoria was having what sounded like a complete breakdown. "What happens now?" I asked. James checked his watch. "Now? Now we leave. I have a car waiting. Tomorrow, we start the legal process. Your mother and sister will be served with papers. The accounts will be frozen. Every penny they stole will be returned. And tonight? Tonight, you and Noah go home. Order pizza. Watch a movie. Be a family." He helped me stand, then picked up Noah like he weighed nothing. "You've performed for these people long enough." As we walked through that ballroom, past the scattered chairs and abandoned champagne, past the people who'd laughed at our humiliation, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. The call came at 7 the next morning. I'd barely slept, replaying the wedding disaster over and over, wondering if it had all been some elaborate dream. But when I saw James Morrison's name on my phone, I knew it was real. "Eleanor, I hope I didn't wake you." "No, I was up." I looked over at Noah, still sleeping peacefully, one arm thrown over his stuffed dinosaur. "Is everything... Did it really happen?" "It did. And I'm afraid I need to see you today. Can you come to my office? Bring Noah. I have a colleague who can watch him while we talk." 3 hours later, I sat in a leather chair that probably cost more than my car, staring at documents that made my head spin. James's office was all dark wood and old books, the kind of place that whispered of serious money and even more serious power. "The transfer will take time," he explained, sliding papers across the mahogany desk. "But effective immediately. You have access to a living account. The company continues to run. William made sure to put good people in place. You don't have to make any decisions about that today." "I don't understand." I said for maybe the 10th time. Why didn't he tell me? Why let me struggle for 3 years? James leaned back, choosing his words carefully. Your father was a complicated man. He loved you deeply, but he needed to know. Know what? That you were who he believed you to be. That you would raise Noah with love despite having nothing. That you wouldn't become bitter or cruel. That given the choice between easy money and hard integrity, you'd choose integrity every time. He tested me. The hurt in my voice was sharp. He protected you, James corrected gently. If Martha and Victoria had known about the real Will, what do you think they would have done? They were already capable of cruelty. Desperation would have made them dangerous. I thought about that. About what Mother might have done if she'd known millions were at stake. The thought made me shudder. Besides, James continued, he left me with very specific instructions. If you had come to me, if you had asked for help beyond what you truly needed for Noah, I was to give it immediately. But you never did. You never asked for anything. I asked Mom once, when Noah was sick, and William came, didn't he? That wasn't Martha's decision. That was him, watching, always watching. We spent the next 2 hours going through everything. The company assets, the properties, not just the family estate, but investment properties all over Boston. The portfolios, the trust funds set aside for Noah's education. It was dizzying, overwhelming. There's something else, James said finally. Your mother and sister. They've been served this morning. Eviction notices for the properties they're living in. They're all company-owned. Asset freezing orders for all accounts. They have 72 hours to return what they stole or face criminal charges. Criminal charges? Fraud, embezzlement, forged signatures on company documents. Your father documented everything, Eleanor. He gave them 3 years to dig their own graves, and they obliged. I thought I should feel something. Satisfaction, maybe? Justice? But all I felt was tired. What will happen to them? That depends on them. If they cooperate, return the money, they'll avoid jail. They'll have to start over with nothing, but they'll be free. If they fight, he shrugged. The evidence is overwhelming. When we left James's office, Noah's hand in mine, my phone had 17 missed calls. All from numbers I didn't recognize. The news was out, spreading through Boston society like wildfire. By evening, reporters had found our apartment. I kept the curtains drawn, the TV off, trying to maintain some normalcy for Noah. We ordered Chinese food and built a blanket fort in the living room. Mom, Noah said, looking serious over his lo mein, are we rich now? I guess we are, baby. But we're still us, right? We don't have to change? I pulled him close. We're still us, always. The next morning, there was a different car outside. A Mercedes with a driver who introduced himself as Thomas. Mr. Morrison arranged for me to be available whenever you need transportation, he explained. There are photographers. It might be safer. He was right. The moment we stepped outside, cameras appeared. Questions shouted from all directions. Eleanor, how does it feel to inherit millions? Did you know about the will? What are your plans for the company? Thomas efficiently got us to the car and away. Noah was wide-eyed, half scared and half excited. Are we famous, Mom? For today, I said. Tomorrow they'll find someone else to bother. But it wasn't just for today. The story had everything the media loved. Family drama, money, betrayal, redemption. The headlines were breathless. Single mother inherits fortune after public humiliation. The Griffin family scandal, 3 years of deception exposed. From coffee shop to CEO, Eleanor Griffin's stunning reversal. James had warned me it would be bad for a while. He assigned me a public relations person, a security team, lawyers to handle the transition. My small life exploded into something I didn't recognize. But the hardest part wasn't the media, or the sudden money, or even the learning curve of understanding what I'd inherited. The hardest part was the letters. They came by the dozens, from people I hadn't heard from in years. High school classmates who suddenly remembered how close we'd been. Distant relatives discovering family bonds. Everyone had a story, a connection, a reason why I should remember them. And then, on the 4th day, a different kind of letter. Hand-delivered by a courier who waited for a response. I recognized Victoria's handwriting immediately. Shaky, tear-stained, but still trying for elegance. Eleanor, I know you hate me. You have every right. But please, I'm begging you. I have nothing. The Hamiltons are suing me for the wedding costs. Mother won't speak to me. All our friends, they won't even take my calls. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just mercy. Your sister, Victoria. I stared at the letter for a long time. The sister who'd tried to auction me off like property, who'd laughed at my pain, who'd made Noah cry. What are you reading, Mom? Noah asked, climbing into my lap. A letter from Aunt Victoria. He was quiet for a moment, then, is she sorry for being mean? I think she's sorry she got caught. Noah considered this with 7-year-old wisdom. Grandpa used to say being sorry means you try to fix what you broke. Out of the mouths of babes, I called James. What's the minimum I have to give them, legally? Nothing. The will is clear, but you could choose to provide something, a living allowance, enough to start over. And if I do, then you're a better person than they deserve. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd struggled over bills, where Noah did his homework, where we'd shared 1,000 simple meals, and I made a decision. Not for them, for me, for the person my father believed I was, for the mother I wanted Noah to see. I would give them enough. Not enough to live as they had, skating by on family money and connections, but enough to rent an apartment, buy food, have a chance to become actual people instead of parasites. The woman I'd been a week ago couldn't have afforded mercy, but I wasn't that woman anymore. 6 months. That's how long it took for my life to completely transform. 6 months of lawyers and accountants, of learning about portfolios and profit margins, of trying to understand how to be wealthy without losing myself. I did 3 things immediately. First, I went back to school. Not full-time. I had Noah to think about, but I enrolled in evening classes to finish my business degree. It felt like completing something my father had always wanted for me. Second, I promoted Janet to manage the coffee shop and made her a partner. She cried when I told her, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. You don't have to do this, she said. Yes, I do. You gave me a job when I had nothing. You understood when I needed to leave early for Noah. This is just fair. Third, and most importantly, I established the William Griffin Foundation. Not just for single parents, though that was part of it. For anyone trying to rebuild after loss. Anyone who needed a hand up, not a handout. Noah helped me design the logo. His tongue stuck out in concentration as he drew. It should have a heart, he decided, because Grandpa had a good heart, even if it was sick. The first grant went to a woman named Sarah, a widow with 3 kids who was about to lose her home. I met her at the foundation office, really just a small space I'd rented downtown, nothing fancy. I don't understand, she kept saying, staring at the check. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Because someone should have helped me, I said simply, and now I can pay it forward. The company ran itself, mostly. Dad had been right about putting good people in place. I attended board meetings, learned to read financial reports, made decisions when needed. But I refused to let it consume me the way it had consumed him. You're not what we expected, the CFO told me after one meeting. What did you expect? Someone more like your mother or sister. Then you're in luck, I said. I'm nothing like them. Mother and Victoria had taken my offer. They shared a 2-bedroom apartment in Brookline, far from their old neighborhood, but decent enough. I knew because I drove by sometimes, not stopping, just checking, making sure. They'd returned most of the money. Not all. Some had been spent, lost to their lavish lifestyle. But enough to avoid prosecution. They were working now, both of them. Mother at a high-end boutique where her knowledge of brands was actually useful. Victoria as an event planner, using her party skills for other people's celebrations. I hadn't spoken to them since the lawyers finished everything. Hadn't responded to Victoria's letters or Mother's one attempt to call. I wasn't ready. Maybe I'd never be ready. But Noah asked about them sometimes. Do you think Grandma is okay? He'd say at dinner. I'm sure she's fine, baby. Maybe she's different now. Maybe she's learned. Maybe, but I doubted it. James became a regular part of our lives. Dinners every week, baseball games with Noah, quiet evenings where we talked about my father, about forgiveness, about moving forward. He'd be proud, James said one night, after Noah had fallen asleep on the couch between us. William, he'd be so proud of how you've handled everything. Would he? I looked around our new house. Not a mansion, just a nice colonial in a good school district. I gave them money after everything they did. Exactly. You gave them what he couldn't. Mercy. He was too angry, too hurt by their betrayal. But you're stronger than he was. I don't feel strong. The strongest people rarely do. Noah stirred, mumbling something about dinosaurs. I smoothed his hair, thinking about strength and weakness, about the weight of inheritance that went beyond money. The call came on a Tuesday. I was reviewing grant applications when my assistant knocked. Eleanor, there's a woman here. She says she's your mother. My stomach clenched. I don't... She says it's about Noah, about something at his school. I was in the lobby in seconds. Mother stood there, looking smaller than I remembered. Older. Her clothes were nice but not designer. Her hair styled but not professionally. She looked like what she was, a woman starting over at 65. What about Noah? I demanded. He's fine, she said quickly. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have, but it was the only way I knew you'd see me. Then there's nothing wrong? You lied? I needed to talk to you. Her voice broke. Please, Eleanor, 5 minutes. I almost walked away, almost called security, but something in her face stopped me. A vulnerability I'd never seen before. 5 minutes. We sat in the conference room, formal as strangers, which I supposed we were. Noah's school had a grandparents' day, she said without preamble. Last week, I saw the announcement in the paper. I knew. Noah had been quiet about it, not asking if anyone would come. I'd sent James in my father's place, and Noah had been thrilled, but still. He doesn't have grandparents, I said coldly. His father's parents died before he was born. His grandfather died 3 years ago, and his grandmother made it clear she wanted nothing to do with him. I was wrong. The words came out in a rush. I was terrible, cruel, unforgivable. I know that. But Eleanor, I'm asking, begging, not for forgiveness, just for a chance to know my grandson. Why now? Because we have money? No. She met my eyes, and I saw tears. Real tears, not the calculated ones she used to produce. Because I have nothing but regret. Because I wake up every day knowing I threw away the only real family I had for, what? Pride? Society connections that vanished the moment the scandal broke? I lost everything, Eleanor. But the only loss that matters is you and Noah. You humiliated us. You tried to auction us like property. I know. She was openly crying now. I see it every night when I close my eyes. That beautiful boy crying because of what I did. My grandson and I made him cry. I wanted to stay angry. Anger was easier than this unexpected pain. Victoria put me up to it, she continued. Said it would be funny, but I could have stopped her. Should have. Instead, I made it worse. I showed everyone exactly what kind of person I am. And what kind is that? She wiped her eyes with a tissue. The kind who chose appearances over family, who valued the wrong things, who had to lose everything to understand what actually mattered. We sat in silence. I thought about Noah, about the questions he'd ask when he was older, about whether I wanted to be the mother who taught forgiveness or the one who held grudges. Supervised visits, I heard myself say. Once a month, in public places. If you miss one, if you say one cruel thing to him, if you make him cry even once, we're done forever. Hope bloomed in her eyes. You mean... I mean Noah deserves to know his grandmother, even if she doesn't deserve to know him. I stood. I'll call you with the details. Don't make me regret this. I won't, she whispered. I promise, Eleanor, I won't. As I walked her out, she turned back. He looks like William, around the eyes. That same kindness. Yeah, I said softly. He does. That night, I told Noah his grandmother wanted to see him. His whole face lit up. Really? She wants to meet me? She wants to try, I said carefully. We'll see how it goes. He hugged me tight. Maybe she was just sad before. Maybe now she can be happy. Maybe Noah had enough hope for all of us. A year. That's what it took for us to find our new normal. A year of growth and change, of learning who we were when we weren't defined by struggle. The coffee shop where I'd worked became our Saturday morning tradition. Janet would make Noah's hot chocolate with extra marshmallows while I helped during the morning rush, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. It kept me grounded, reminded me where I'd come from. You know you don't have to do this, Janet would say, watching me wipe down tables. I know, that's why I can. The foundation had grown beyond my wildest dreams. What started as a small office with me and one assistant had become a full operation, helping dozens of families every month. Noah was our unofficial mascot, charming donors at fundraising events, his natural sweetness doing more than any speech could. My grandpa would have liked this, he'd tell people, and wallets would open like magic. Mother had kept her promise. Every visit was carefully orchestrated, usually at the park or the children's museum. She was different with Noah than she'd ever been with me, patient, attentive, genuinely interested in his thoughts and dreams. "She reads all my stories," Noah told me after one visit, "and she doesn't laugh at the silly parts." "That's good, baby." She said she was sorry she wasn't a good grandma before. I told her it's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone did, even me. Victoria reached out through Mother, a tentative olive branch. "Could we meet? Just the two of us?" I thought about it for weeks before agreeing. We met at a neutral restaurant, both of us awkward as teenagers. She looked good, not the polished perfection of before, but healthier somehow. Real. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I almost didn't." "I know." She twisted her napkin. "Eleanor, I need to say something. Not for you to forgive me, just to say it." I waited. "I was jealous," she said quietly. "My whole life I was jealous of you." "Of me?" I couldn't hide my shock. "You had everything." "I had things. You had Dad's respect. His real love." She looked up. "Do you know what he used to say? Victoria's beautiful, but Eleanor's brilliant. Victoria knows how to work a room, but Eleanor knows how to work. And I hated you for it. So you tried to destroy me?" "I tried to prove I was worth something too. That I could be clever and important." She laughed bitterly. "Instead, I proved him right. You were the one worth saving. We talked for 2 hours. Not reconciling exactly, but clearing the air. She told me about her new life, about learning to work for the first time, about the strange freedom of having nothing to prove. "I'm seeing someone," she admitted. "A teacher, public school. Mother nearly fainted when I told her. And he's kind. He doesn't care about my last name or what I used to have. He likes me for me, whatever that is." "That's good, Victoria, really." When we parted, she hugged me, quick, awkward, but genuine. "Maybe someday," she said. "When Noah's older, maybe I could meet him properly, be a real aunt?" "Maybe," I said, and meant it. James and I had grown closer over the months. What started as legal guidance had become friendship, and then something more. He was there for Noah's school plays, for foundation galas, for quiet Sunday dinners. "I'm too old for you," he said one night after Noah was in bed. "You're 12 years older. That's not ancient. Your father was my friend." "He was, and he asked you to take care of us." I took his hand. "Maybe this is what that looks like." "Eleanor, I'm not a grieving widow anymore, James. I'm not a struggling single mother. I know who I am now, and I know what I want." What I wanted was a partner. Someone who understood our journey, who loved Noah like his own, who saw me for exactly who I was. What I wanted was the man who'd stood up in that ballroom and defended us when no one else would. Our wedding was small. Just Noah, Janet, a few close friends, and yes, Mother and Victoria. We held it in the botanical garden, surrounded by flowers and light. Noah was the ring bearer and took his job so seriously that everyone giggled when he marched down the aisle like a tiny soldier. "Do you think Grandpa's watching?" he whispered during the ceremony. "I know he is," I whispered back. After, at the reception, nothing like Victoria's spectacle, just good food and people who actually loved us, Mother pulled me aside. "You look beautiful," she said. "And happy." Really happy. "I am. I'm glad." She touched my hand briefly. "I know I have no right to say this, but I'm proud of you, Eleanor, for surviving us, for becoming this person despite us." "Not despite," I said, surprising myself, "because everything that happened, even the awful parts, led me here, and here is good." She smiled, wobbly but real. "Your father would be so pleased. James was always the son he wished he'd had. And now he is. Funny how things work out." Later, I found Noah in the garden, sitting on a bench with a piece of cake, watching the sunset. "You okay, buddy?" "Yeah." He scooted over to make room for me, careful not to get frosting on my dress. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you think Dad, my first dad, would be okay with James being my new dad?" I pulled him close, this beautiful boy who'd been through so much and come out so kind. I think your first dad would be grateful that you have someone else to love you. Love isn't pie, baby. It doesn't run out. The more you give, the more there is. He thought about that. Like the foundation? The more we help, the more help there is? Exactly like that. As the evening wound down, I stood with James, watching Noah play with the other children. The setting sun painted everything gold, and I thought about cycles, about endings that were really beginnings. No regrets? James asked. None, you? Only that it took so long to get here. But the timing had been perfect, really. We'd both needed to become who we were meant to be. Me, learning my own strength. Him, honoring a promise that became something more. The will reading, I said suddenly. That first day in your office, you could have told me everything then. I could have. Why didn't you? He turned me to face him. Because you weren't ready. You were still defining yourself by what you'd lost. You needed to discover what you could build. And now? Now you know. You're not William Griffin's daughter or Martha's disappointment or Victoria's shadow. You're Eleanor, Foundation founder, mother, survivor, my wife. He smiled. The woman who gave mercy when she had every right to give justice. I gave both, I corrected, just in different measures. As if summoned by our conversation, Victoria appeared with her teacher boyfriend. She was nervous, I could tell, but determined. Eleanor, James, I wanted to introduce Michael properly. We shook hands, made a small talk. Michael was earnest and clearly besotted with Victoria. But more importantly, he seemed to see her clearly, flaws and all. Thank you, Victoria said quietly as they left, for letting us come, for everything. Everyone deserves a second chance, I said. Even us. The party ended as the stars came out. Noah fell asleep in the car, clutching his ring-bearer pillow. James drove while I watched the city lights blur past, thinking about journeys and destinations. 3 years ago, I'd stood in the snow, wondering how I'd survive. Now I knew the secret. You don't just survive. You transform. You take the broken pieces and build something new, something stronger. What are you thinking? James asked. About snow, I said. About beginnings disguised as endings. And about how Dad knew. Somehow he knew it would all work out. William was a smart man. He was. But I think he just believed in love. In the end, that's what saves us. Noah stirred in the back seat, mumbling about cake. James reached over and took my hand. Outside, Boston glittered with promise, and I smiled. We were home, and that's how I went from being a single mom serving coffee to becoming the CEO of $1 million company. Not because of luck, but because of a father who planned from beyond the grave to protect his daughter. Have you ever had to face betrayal from your own family? If you were in my shoes, would you choose revenge or forgiveness? Leave a comment below. I read every single one, and I truly want to hear your story. If this video touched your heart, don't forget to like and share it with someone who needs to hear that sometimes the worst beginnings lead to the most beautiful endings. And remember to subscribe so you don't miss the next real-life story that might just change your perspective.
My name is Elena Carter. 7 years ago, I disappeared from the man I loved most, carrying the biggest secret of my life. I raised my daughter alone, convinced he had betrayed me. Until the day she performed the piece I wrote in heartbreak. And under a video with millions of views, one comment froze my blood. This is my daughter. Please, Elena, let me explain. Before I share the rest of my story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Hit the like button and subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. The violin bow slipped from my fingers the moment our eyes met. In 27 years of playing, through recitals at Juilliard and street performances in the rain, I'd never lost grip of my bow. But there, in that crowded Brooklyn Community Center, surrounded by the children I taught for free, something in Nathan Hale's gaze made my hands forget their purpose. I bent to retrieve it, heat flooding my cheeks. The kids giggled. Miss Elena never made mistakes. When I straightened, he was still watching. This man in his $1,000 suit standing among donated folding chairs, looking as out of place as a swan in a subway station. Keep playing, little Maria whispered, tugging my dress. The rich people need to hear us. I tucked the violin back under my chin and closed my eyes, letting Pachelbel's Canyon flow through me like it had 1,000 times before. But this time, I felt his eyes like spotlights, warming and exposing me all at once. After the benefit concert, while I helped the kids pack their instruments, I overheard him arguing with another man near the exit. Both wore the same expensive confidence, but their words were sharp. The Sunset Park project isn't negotiable, Nathan, the other man said. 40 city blocks? Victor's already got the mayor on board. These people live here, Adrian. Kids learn music here. Kids can learn music anywhere. I froze, clutching Sofia Ramirez's rental violin case. Sunset Park, my neighborhood. Our neighborhood. Nathan's voice dropped lower. I won't be part of displacing families. You already are. Your signature's on the preliminary surveys. The case handle dug into my palm. Another rich developer. Another community about to be revitalized until none of us could afford to live in it. I should have known men like him didn't come to Brooklyn community centers out of kindness. When I looked up, Nathan stood before me, Adrian gone. Up close, his eyes weren't the cold blue of winter I'd expected, but warm like August sky. You dropped this, he said, holding out my bow. I'm Nathan. I know who you are. The words came out harder than intended. I heard. His face changed, understanding flickering across it. It's not what you... It never is. I took the bow, careful not to let our fingers touch. Thank you for coming to support the children, Mr. Hale. I turned away, but his voice followed. I'd like to hear you play again, properly, without me making you nervous. I almost laughed. Nervous? He thought he made me nervous? I was terrified. He appeared at our next 3 concerts. Always in the back, always alone, always leaving a donation that could fund our program for months. The children started calling him Mr. Nathan and saving him a seat. He watches you, Maria observed one evening, organizing sheet music with the seriousness only an 8-year-old could muster. Like how my papa watched Mama before they got married. He watches everyone, I corrected, though I knew she was right. 3 weeks in, he approached during cleanup. I have a proposition. My hands stilled on the violin case. Here it comes, and the offer to help that always came with strings. I'm listening. I'm designing a community space, music rooms, practice halls, affordable housing above, for Sunset Park. He pulled out his phone, showing me sketches. I want it to be right. I need someone who understands what this neighborhood actually needs. The drawings were beautiful. Too beautiful. What's the catch? No catch, just coffee. You tell me what would work, what wouldn't. Consultant fee. If you prefer. I don't need your money. Then do it for them. He gestured to my students filing out. Help me build something that won't force them to leave. Against my better judgment, I agreed to 1 coffee, which became 2, then dinner. Then walks through Prospect Park, where he'd point out architectural details I'd never noticed, and I'd teach him to hear the city's rhythm, subway percussion, taxi horns in B-flat, and the melody of 5 languages blending on 1 block. Adrian joined us once, Nathan's business partner and oldest friend. Handsome in a sharper way, quick to laugh, quicker to touch my elbow when making a point. He asked about my music, my dreams, actually listened to the answers. You're good for him? Adrian told me privately, while Nathan took a call. I haven't seen him this human in years. Human? He builds beautiful cages and forgets people need to live in them. You remind him why the windows matter. The compliment felt like a warning. One evening, Nathan showed me his real project. Not just one building, but a whole development model. Affordable housing that stayed affordable. Community spaces that communities actually controlled. My father would hate it, he admitted. No maximum profit. Just enough. Why? I asked. He was quiet so long I thought he wouldn't answer. My mother grew up in a place like Sunset Park. Dad made his fortune developing it. She spent her last years trying to find her old neighbors. Apologize. They'd all been scattered. He met my eyes. I'm tired of building things that break communities. That night, I let him walk me home. At my door, he touched my face like I was made of music he was afraid to interrupt. I'm not good at this, he whispered. At what? Wanting someone more than I want to succeed. I should have heard the warning in that too. Nathan proposed 6 months later, in the community center where we met, after hours when streetlight filtered through windows like cathedral glass. He didn't kneel. Instead, he unrolled architectural plans across the donated piano. What's this? I asked, though my heart already knew. Our house, if you'll have it, and me. The drawings showed everything I'd mentioned in passing. A music room with perfect acoustics, windows facing the garden because I loved morning light, a kitchen big enough for my grandmother's recipes. He'd been listening all along, collecting my dreams like sheet music. Nathan? I know it's fast. I know I'm asking a lot, but Elena, you've rewritten everything I thought I wanted. Let me build something for us. The ring was his mother's, he said. Simple. Musical almost. The diamond held between prongs like a note suspended in time. I said yes. Of course I did. Love makes fools of careful women. Adrian threw us an engagement party that felt like a warning wrapped in champagne. Toasts from people I'd never met, who looked at my Target dress and department store heels with polite confusion. Nathan kept my hand in his, thumb stroking circles like a promise. You belong here because I choose you. Quite the Cinderella story, a woman commented, diamonds dripping from her neck. From teaching in Brooklyn to, well, I still teach in Brooklyn, I said. Her laugh tinkled like broken glass. How dedicated. Adrian appeared with fresh drinks, steering her away. Elena's changing how we think about community development, he said smoothly. Nathan's lucky to have her insight. Later, On the terrace, I caught Nathan staring at his phone, face carved in shadows. What's wrong? He pocketed it quickly. Nothing. Business. Nathan? Really, just... Victor Langston wants a meeting. He's interested in our Sunset Park model. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Could be huge for the community. I should have pushed. Should have asked why the name Victor Langston made him grip his champagne flute like a weapon. Instead, I let him pull me back inside, where Adrian was playing piano, some jazzy tune that made everyone forget their worries. The next morning, a manila envelope appeared under my door. No return address. Inside, a single photo. Nathan entering a restaurant with a woman, her hand on his arm, familiar like lovers. My first thought wasn't anger or heartbreak. It was, of course, because girls like me don't get fairy tales. We get reminders of our place. I stuffed the photo in a drawer, told myself I'd ask him, told myself there was an explanation. There always was, until there wasn't. St. Patrick's Cathedral looked like heaven had descended to Fifth Avenue. Flowers cascaded from every surface, and 300 guests waited inside. Nathan's world, ready to swallow mine. I stood in the bridal suite, watching Manhattan blur through tears I wouldn't let fall. Maria, my smallest student, held my train like it was spun from dreams. You look like a princess, Miss Elena. Princesses are make-believe, sweetheart. She frowned at my tone. Below, organ music swelled. My cue in 10 minutes. 9, 8. My phone buzzed. Nathan, probably, with another sweet message. But the caller ID showed unknown. Don't answer, my sister Rosa warned. Not today. But I did. I always did the thing I shouldn't. Beautiful dress. A man's voice, smooth like oil over water. Shame it'll be wasted. Who is this? Victor Langston, Nathan's business associate. We need to discuss your fiancé's promises. The ones he's breaking to marry you. My hand shook. I don't know what. Sunset Park, my dear, 40 blocks. Nathan signed agreements months ago. After your honeymoon, he'll honor them, or I'll make sure you understand the cost of his betrayal. Check your messages. The line died. With trembling fingers, I opened my texts. Screenshots of contracts, Nathan's signature clear as day. Demolition permits, eviction schedules, everything he'd promised to protect, signed away. 2 minutes, Elena. The wedding coordinator's voice chirped through the door. I couldn't breathe. The dress, so perfect an hour ago, felt like a straitjacket. Maria tugged my hand. Miss Elena? You look sick. I need air. Just give me a moment. But moments were luxuries I'd run out of. The door opened and Adrian stepped in, concern creasing his perfect face. Elena? Nathan sent me to check. He stopped, seeing my phone. What's wrong? I showed him, wordless. His face cycled through emotions too fast to read. This has to be fake. Nathan would never... Wouldn't he? The word scraped out. You're his best friend, his business partner. Tell me you didn't know. Adrian gripped my shoulders, gentle but firm. I swear, I had no idea. Elena, listen to me. We can figure this out after I marry him? After I promise to trust him with my life? After we get proof. This could be Victor trying to... He paused, pulling out his own phone. His face went white. Oh, God. What? He turned the screen. An email from Nathan to Victor, dated last week. The wedding will buy us time. Elena doesn't need to know until it's done. The bouquet slipped from my numb fingers, white roses scattering like the promises Nathan had made. Somewhere, the organ started the processional. I can't, I whispered. Adrian's arms went around me as I shook. I'll handle Nathan. Get out. Backstairs. My car's outside. I ran. Wedding dress trailing, guests gasping, Maria calling after me. Just a runaway bride. Another woman who had learned too late that love was just a prettier word for betrayal. New Jersey felt like another planet. Rosa's spare room became my universe. 4 walls to contain the mess I'd become. The wedding dress hung in the closet like a ghost. You need to tell him, Rosa said for the 100th time, watching me hunch over the toilet. Tell him what? That I'm pregnant with the baby of a man who lied about everything? She held my hair back, steady as always. Tell him you're safe, at least. The man's called 50 times. I turned my phone off after the first 10 messages. Adrian had called too, left voicemails I couldn't bear to hear. The only person who knew where I was Rosa, and I'd made her swear silence. 6 weeks passed in a haze of morning sickness and afternoon tears. I returned to work, teaching violin to new students who didn't ask why Miss Elena looked so sad. At night, I'd press my hand to my still flat stomach and whisper apologies to the tiny life that would never know its father. Then Adrian appeared at my door, soaking from November rain. How did you... Rosa called me. She's worried. He looked terrible, exhaustion carved into his perfect features. Elena, please, just hear me out. There's nothing to... Nathan's falling apart. He's dropped the Sunset Park deal. Lost millions fighting Victor in court. Barely sleeps. Good. Adrian's eyes softened. You don't mean that. I turned away, but he caught my arm, gentle. That's when his gaze dropped to my middle, to the protective hand I didn't realize I'd placed there. Oh, he breathed. Elena, no. Does he? No. And he won't. The words came out fierce. This baby deserves better than a father who builds beautiful lies. But I would never. He met my eyes. I just want you safe. Both of you. Then keep our secret. Elena, promise me, Adrian, on whatever friendship you had with Nathan. He doesn't get to know. He was quiet so long I thought he'd refuse. Then, I'll do whatever you need. Always. I believed him. Another mistake and a symphony of them. The contractions started during the worst storm in a decade. 7 months pregnant, and this baby was coming, whether the world was ready or not. Just like its mother. Terrible timing. Stubborn to the core. I called Nathan. Don't ask me why. Maybe pain makes us stupid. Or maybe I wanted him to know what he was missing. The phone rang once, twice. Elena? His voice broke on my name like he'd been gargling glass. God, Elena, where... I'm in labor, I gasped out between contractions. Your child is... Another wave hit. I couldn't finish. Where are you? I'm coming. Elena, please. Doesn't matter. You have that meeting with Victor tonight. The one worth 10 billion. Remember? More important than... I screamed as the pain peaked. Fuck Victor. Fuck the meeting. Where are you? But I'd already hung up. Let him choose his empire. We'd chosen life. Rosa drove through flooding streets, but the bridge was closed. Trapped between contractions and rising water, I called the only other person who might come. Adrian answered immediately. What's wrong? 20 minutes later, he carried me into Mount Sinai's emergency room like I weighed nothing, shouting for doctors while I bled through Rosa's car blankets. The nurses assumed he was the father. The way he held my hand wouldn't leave my side. She's hemorrhaging, someone said. We need to operate now. Do whatever it takes, Adrian commanded. Save them both. The last thing I saw before the darkness, Adrian's face, tears streaming as he whispered, I've got you. I've got both of you. I woke to rhythmic beeping and the weight of survival. Adrian sat beside my bed, a tiny bundle in his arms. She's perfect, he whispered. 6 pounds, screaming like her mama. Fighter from the start. I reached for my daughter, this miracle wrapped in hospital blankets. Where's... Nathan arrived an hour ago. I sent him to the cafeteria. Adrian's jaw tightened. Elena, there's something you should know. The birth certificate. They needed information while you were unconscious. I may have... Mr. Wells? A nurse appeared. We need you to sign the paternity acknowledgement, since you're listed as the father. The world stopped. You what? Adrian had the grace to look guilty. You were dying. They needed next of kin. I couldn't let Nathan, not after what he did. That wasn't your choice. Elena, please. You nearly died. Sophia needed... Sophia? His face softened. You kept saying the name during labor. I thought... Footsteps in the hallway. Nathan's voice, demanding answers. Adrian quickly handed me the baby, leaning close. Let me protect you. Both of you. He doesn't deserve... Get out. The words barely escaped. Get out. But it was too late. The damage was done. In trying to save me, Adrian had stolen something that wasn't his to take. Nathan appeared in the doorway just as Adrian left. His face... God, his face, when he saw the baby. Is she... I turned away, clutching Sophia closer. Sometimes salvation looks exactly like damnation. Sophia learned violin before she could properly hold a spoon. By 7, she played with the kind of passion that made strangers stop on the street. She had Nathan's eyes, my stubbornness, and a laugh that could heal the broken parts of me. Almost. We lived quietly in Queens. I taught music, built a life measured in recital schedules and school pickups. Adrian visited monthly, playing the devoted uncle who brought too many gifts and watched me with eyes full of unspoken words. Why don't I have a daddy? Sophia asked one evening, her bow poised over strings. You have me, and Uncle Adrian. But Maria has a daddy, and Tomas, and... Play your scales, baby. She did, but the questions lingered in every note. I never spoke Nathan's name. Didn't search for him online. Didn't wonder if he'd married someone appropriate. Someone who understood his world. Adrian volunteered nothing, and I asked for less. Then YouTube changed everything. Miss Elena? One of my students burst into the studio. Sophia's famous? Look. Someone had filmed Sophia playing at the spring showcase. My composition. The one I'd written while loving Nathan. Thinking we'd build forever. The video exploded. 7-year-old prodigy plays mother's heartbreak symphony. 3 million views in 2 days. Comments flooding in about her talent, her passion, the way she made the violin weep. And then, buried in thousands of replies, one that made my blood freeze. This is my daughter. Please, Elena, let me explain. The account was verified. Nathan Hale, architect, philanthropist, still unmarried, according to Google. Still building things that helped communities thrive. Adrian arrived within hours of the video going viral. We need to talk. We need to move. Change our names. Leave before her father finds her? Adrian's voice turned sharp. Elena, this has gone on long enough. You don't get to decide. I've kept your secret for 7 years. Lied to my best friend. Watched him destroy himself. Wondering why you ran? He pulled out a manila folder, thick with papers. But I'm done enabling this. Inside, every document from that terrible time. Proof that Nathan fought Victor. Lost everything defending Sunset Park. Proof that the contracts I'd seen were forgeries. Proof that the woman in the photo was his sister. Proof that I'd run from the one person trying to save us all. No, I whispered. This isn't... Adrian, you showed me... His face crumbled. I showed you what I thought was real. I believed Victor too. By the time I learned the truth, you were gone, and He stopped. I couldn't lose you both. I'm sorry. Sophia's laughter drifted from the next room, where she played for her stuffed animals. 7 years of lies. From everyone. Including me. Nathan stood on my doorstep, looking like 7 years of grief had carved him hollow. Sophia peeked from behind me, curious about the stranger who'd made her mother shake. You have my eyes, he said softly to her. Lots of people have blue eyes, she replied, but I heard the question underneath. Sophia, go practice, please. She went, trailing confused glances. Nathan and I faced each other across a chasm of lost time. I know about Adrian, he said simply. About the papers, the lies, all of it. How long have you known? 6 months. Private investigator found the truth after I saw a photo of you two at her school concert. His voice broke. 6 months of knowing where you were and staying away because I thought you were happy with him. I was never with Adrian. But the birth certificate was a lie, like everything else that night. I sank onto the porch step, exhausted by the weight of truth. I was dying, Nathan. He made a choice. Nathan sat beside me, careful not to touch. I should have fought harder. Should have found you sooner. Should have told me about Victor from the start. He flinched. I was trying to protect you, to handle it without dragging you into his ugliness. A bitter laugh. Instead, I lost everything that mattered. We sat in silence, listening to Sophia's music drift through windows. My composition filtered through her innocence. She's brilliant, he whispered. She's yours. The words hung between us like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Nathan buried his face in his hands. 7 years, Elena. She's 7 years old, and I've missed everything. I'm sorry. The words felt too small. I was scared, hurt, young and stupid, and human. He looked at me then, still Nathan, despite the gray threading his temples. We were both human. The door creaked. Sophia stood there, violin in hand. Mama, why are you crying? I opened my mouth, but Nathan spoke first. Because sometimes happy tears and sad tears look the same. I'm Nathan, by the way. She studied him with those shared eyes. Nathan like in Mama's song? The one she cries when she plays? My face burned, but Nathan smiled. The first real smile I'd seen. Yeah, like in the song. Are you staying for dinner? We both looked at her. This bridge between our broken pieces. That's up to your mom, Nathan said carefully. Sophia turned to me, hope shining. Can he, Mama? Please? One dinner, one chance, one possibility of rebuilding. Okay, I whispered, just dinner. But we all knew it was more than that. It was a beginning. 6 months later, I stood backstage at Lincoln Center, watching Sophia tune her violin. She'd insisted on performing my composition. Our composition, she called it now. The one that started everything. Nervous? Nathan appeared beside me, close but not touching. We were learning to be friends first, parents second, and maybe someday. Something more. Terrified. She'll be amazing, like her mother. On stage, the announcer introduced Sophia Hale Carter, and my heart stuttered at the hyphenated name. Her choice, her bridge between worlds. Adrian sat in the audience, 3 rows back. We'd found our way to forgiveness, or at least understanding. He loved me, had loved us both in his broken way. But love without trust is just beautiful damage. Victor Langston was serving 5 years for fraud. The Sunset Park Community Center stood strong, teaching music to kids who needed to believe in something bigger than circumstances. Sophia began to play, and the melody that had once meant heartbreak transformed. In her hands, it became something else. Resilience, maybe. Hope. The story of people who fail and try again. Nathan's hand found mine in the dark. Not grasping, just there, available, patient. I'm not ready, I whispered. I know. I might never be ready. I know that too. And Sophia reached the crescendo, the part I'd written while breaking, and somehow made it sound like healing. The audience held its breath. But maybe, I said, so quiet only he could hear, maybe we could try, slowly. His fingers intertwined with mine, answer enough. On stage, our daughter played the last note, not an ending, but a pause before the next movement. The crowd erupted, but she looked only at us, her smile brighter than stage lights. That was for you, she mouthed, both of you. Adrian caught my eye from the audience, nodded once, and then slipped out. His part in our story, finally complete. Nathan and I walked on stage to join Sophia. 3 people who'd found each other after being lost. The audience saw a touching family moment. We knew better. We were a work in progress, a melody still being written. But for the first time in 7 years, I believed we might find our way to harmony. The bow was in my hand. The music was ours to play. And this time, I wouldn't let go. My name is Elena Rivera, just an ordinary librarian, but my life was torn apart by a love with a billionaire and the battle to protect my baby boy. A heart-stopping climax I'll never forget. Victoria looked straight at me, her smile ice cold. We will take custody of Gabriel. You're not fit to be a mother. He will be raised as a Hale. In that moment, I had nothing. No money, no power, but I knew I could never let go. Before I share the rest of my story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you've ever had to fight for your family. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. I never believed in fate until the day Christopher Hale literally fell into my life. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon at the Chicago Public Library where I worked. The children's section buzzed with after-school energy when I heard the crash. A tall man in an expensive suit had tripped over a stack of picture books, chasing after a giggling little girl with pigtails. "Uncle Chris, you're too slow," the child squealed, dancing between the shelves. I rushed over, finding him sprawled awkwardly between Dr. Seuss and Harry Potter. His tailored jacket was askew, dark hair tousled, but what struck me were his eyes. Gray like the storm outside, holding a loneliness that expensive clothes couldn't hide. "Are you hurt?" I knelt beside him, unconsciously, straightening scattered books. He blinked, seeming surprised by my concern. Only my pride. His voice was deep, cultured, but carried warmth. "I'm sorry about the mess. My niece thinks libraries are playgrounds." "They kind of are," I said, helping him up. His hand was warm, calloused, despite the manicured nails. "Just quieter playgrounds." The little girl peeked out from behind a bookshelf. "Is Uncle Chris in trouble?" "No trouble at all, sweetheart," I smiled at her. "But how about we find some books about princesses who use their inside voices?" Christopher watched me lead his niece to the picture book corner, something shifting in his expression. I felt his gaze like a physical touch, making me conscious of my secondhand cardigan and the coffee stain on my skirt. "You're good with children," he said later, as I checked out their books. "Part of the job." I focused on scanning barcodes, avoiding those searching eyes. Men who looked like him, polished, confident, expensive, didn't really see women like me. We were background noise in their world of privilege. "Sophie, say thank you to Elena," I supplied, tapping my name tag. "Thank you, Miss Elena," Sophie chirped. "Uncle Chris thinks you're pretty." "Sophie." His face flushed, and suddenly he looked less like a magazine cover and more like any embarrassed uncle. I laughed, the sound surprising me. When was the last time I genuinely laughed at work? "Well, thank you both. Enjoy your books." They left, but something lingered. A warmth where his hand had touched mine. A flutter when he'd smiled. I shook it off. Men like Christopher Hale didn't fall for librarians who heated up leftover rice and beans for dinner and darned their own socks. But the next day, he was back. Alone this time, hovering near the information desk with an uncertainty that didn't match his confident bearing. "Looking for something specific?" I asked. He smiled, that loneliness flickering in his eyes again. "Actually, I was hoping to find you." And that's how it started. With a fall, a laugh, and a man who saw me when I'd grown used to being invisible. Christopher started coming to the library 3 times a week, always with some excuse. Research for work, books for Sophie, recommendations for his book club, which I suspected didn't exist. "You know we have online catalogs," I mentioned one Thursday, catching him pretending to browse the business section while stealing glances at me. "The internet lacks your expertise," he said, then winced. That sounded less creepy in my head. Despite myself, I smiled. "Little bit creepy, but I've heard worse. Mrs. Patterson from Romance asked me to personally select books featuring strapping Highland lads every week." His laugh was rich, genuine. "And do you? Select them?" "I'm very good at my job." I straightened a shelf, hyper-aware of his presence. Though I draw the line at the ones with questionable cover art. We fell into a rhythm. He'd arrive near my break time, and we'd grab coffee from the cart outside. Nothing fancy, just 2 people talking on library steps, watching Chicago rush past. "What do you do?" I asked once, curious about the designer suits and expensive watch. "Real estate," he said vaguely. "Development, boring stuff." I should have pushed, but I liked our bubble. In those moments, he wasn't some rich stranger, and I wasn't the girl who'd grown up checking couch cushions for loose change. We were just Chris and Elena, debating whether hot dogs counted as sandwiches and if the Cubs would ever win another World Series. "You're different," he said one afternoon, after I'd spent 10 minutes passionately defending graphic novels as legitimate literature. "Weird, you mean?" I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, self-conscious. Real. His hand covered mine on the steps. Everyone I know speaks in networking events and profit margins. You talk about stories that change lives and kids who discover reading. You see magic in ordinary things. My heart hammered. That's what librarians do. No, he said softly. That's what you do. The first twist came 3 weeks later. He'd finally asked me to dinner. A proper date, not stolen break time coffee. I agonized over what to wear, settling on my only nice dress, a black number I'd bought for my cousin's wedding. He picked me up from my apartment, trying not to stare at the crumbling building, the graffitied walls. If he was shocked by the contrast to whatever palace he lived in, he hid it well. "You look beautiful," he said simply, and I believed him. Dinner was at a little Italian place, nothing showy. He made me laugh until my sides hurt, telling stories about Sophie's antics. I shared memories of growing up with 3 brothers, how books became my escape from hand-me-downs and hamburger helper dinners. "You never talk about your ex-husband," I mentioned, surprising myself with boldness. His face shuddered. "Not much to say. We wanted different things. She wanted my money more than me. Red flag, maybe." But the pain in his voice was real. I reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It led me here." He turned my hand over, tracing my palm. "To you." We were official, though Christopher insisted on keeping things low-key. "I want to protect what we have," he said, and I, drunk on new love, agreed. Our dates were simple: farmers markets, old movies, teaching literacy classes together at the community center. He was different there, gentle with struggling readers, patient with elderly students. The Christopher, who knelt beside 7-year-old Marcus, helping him sound out words, bore no resemblance to the cold businessman I'd first assumed him to be. "You're good at this," I told him after class, watching him high-five Marcus for finishing his first whole sentence. "I had a good teacher," he said, pulling me close in the empty classroom. "This woman who showed me there's more to life than board meetings." I should have known it was too perfect. The twist came on a Wednesday. I was reshelving magazines when Christopher's face stared back from the cover of Forbes. Chicago's most eligible billionaire, Christopher Hale, on building an empire. Billionaire. My hands shook as I read. Hale Group, International Developments, net worth that made my eyes water. The man I'd been sharing hot dogs with owned half of Chicago's skyline. I left work early, something I never did. By the time he showed up at my apartment that evening, I'd cried myself empty. "Elena?" He knew immediately something was wrong. "What happened?" I thrust the magazine at him. "Billionaire? Were you ever going to tell me?" His face went white. "I wanted to. God, Elena, I tried so many times." "To what? Tell me you've been slumming it? Getting your kicks with the poor librarian?" "Don't." His voice broke. "Don't you dare diminish what we have. What we have is built on lies." I was shaking. "Every time you acted impressed by my studio apartment, every time you said money didn't matter, it doesn't matter. Easy to say when you have it." The words exploded out, years of want and worry behind them. "Do you know what it's like to choose between groceries and bus fare? To wear the same shoes until they literally fall apart?" "No," he said quietly. "I don't. But I know what it's like to have everyone want something from you except yourself. I know what it's like to be surrounded by people and feel utterly alone until you." He stepped closer, and I backed away. "Elena, please. I didn't tell you because, for the first time in my life, someone saw me. Not my bank account, not my connections. Me." "But it wasn't really you, was it?" Tears ran down my face. "It was some character you played. Regular Chris, who drinks coffee from carts and takes the bus." "That's more me than I've ever been," he said desperately. "Everything else, the money, the company, that's the act. This, us, is the only real thing in my life." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But the betrayal cut too deep. "I need time," I whispered. "Elena, please, just give me time to think." Against my better judgment, I gave Christopher another chance. He courted me properly this time. No more pretense, though he kept the ostentation to a minimum. He learned my boundaries, understood my pride. When he offered gifts, I refused. When he suggested expensive restaurants, I countered with food trucks. You're the stubbornest woman I've ever met, he said once, after I'd turned down a bracelet that probably cost more than my annual salary. And you love it, I shot back, surprising us both with my boldness. I do, he said simply. I love you. First time he'd said it, my heart stopped, started, soared. Chris, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. But I did say it back, later that night, whispered against his shoulder. Because despite everything, I did love him. Helplessly, hopelessly, completely. Which is why I agreed to meet his family. They're particular, he warned, straightening his tie nervously. We sat in his car outside the Hale mansion, a monstrosity of marble and intimidation. Rich, you mean? That too. He took my hand. Just remember, their opinion doesn't matter, only mine does, and I choose you. The foyer was bigger than my entire apartment, cold, despite the summer heat. Christopher's mother descended the staircase like royalty surveying her domain. You must be Ellen, she said, deliberately getting my name wrong. Elena, Christopher corrected, his hand tightening on my back. Of course. Victoria Hale's smile could have frozen Lake Michigan. How quaint. Dinner was torture disguised as civility. Every word was a weapon, every glance an assessment. Victoria asked about my family with feigned interest, her eyes glittering when I mentioned my father's job as a janitor. How wonderful that Christopher's doing charity work with literacy programs, she said, cutting her salmon with surgical precision. Though I do worry about the people he's exposed to in those environments. Mother, Christopher warned, I'm simply concerned for your health, darling, and safety. She looked at me. I'm sure Ellen understands. Elena, I said quietly. And yes, I understand perfectly. Christopher's sister, Celeste, was worse because she hid behind sweetness. I love your dress, she gushed. Vintage is so brave, not everyone can pull off secondhand. I hadn't said it was secondhand. The twist came with dessert. The doors opened and in walked a woman who belonged in this world of crystal and cruelty. Blonde, elegant, wearing diamonds that caught the light like stars. Madeline? Victoria rose, actually showing warmth. Perfect timing. You remember Christopher? How could I forget? Madeline glided over, kissing Christopher's cheek, leaving lipstick like a brand. Hello, darling. It's been too long. Christopher went rigid. Mother? What is this? Just catching up with old friends. Madeline's been abroad, but she's back now. Permanently. Victoria smiled at me, predator to prey. Isn't that wonderful? The message was clear. I was temporary. Madeline was forever. I survived that dinner, but it marked the beginning of Victoria's campaign. She was too smart for outright attacks. Instead, she wielded 1,000 tiny cuts. At the charity gala Christopher insisted I attend, she introduced me to everyone as Christopher's little friend from the library, doing such important work, teaching the underprivileged to read. The emphasis on little and underprivileged was unmistakable. She makes it sound like you're running a shelter, I told Christopher later, struggling with the zipper of a borrowed dress. Ignore her, he said, but I caught the tension in his jaw. The family pressure was getting to him. The next twist came at his company's anniversary party. I'd actually bought a new dress for this one, spending money I couldn't afford to not embarrass him. Christopher looked at me like I'd hung the moon. You're stunning, he breathed, and for a moment, I felt like I belonged. Then Celeste appeared with her phone. Elena, you have to see this hilarious video going around. She thrust the screen at me. There I was, secretly filmed at the community center, my voice dubbed over with gold digger comments. Teaching these kids is the perfect way to get close to rich men with guilt complexes, the fake me said. Christopher Hale never saw it coming. My blood turned ice. Around us, phones buzzed. The video was everywhere, viral in our social circle within minutes. I couldn't breathe. Christopher's face was stone. Who did this? Does it matter? Victoria materialized beside us. The damage is done. Perhaps it's best if Elena leaves before this becomes more embarrassing. The only embarrassment here is you, Christopher snarled at his mother. But when he turned to me, I saw it. Doubt. Just a flicker, but enough. You believe it? I whispered. No, Elena, You do. Part of you wonders if it's true. I backed away, humiliation burning through me. After everything, you still think I'm capable of that. That's not, I ran. In borrowed heels and a dress I couldn't afford, I ran from the ballroom, from the whispers, from the man who claimed to love me but couldn't fully trust me. Christopher called endlessly, texted, showed up at my apartment, at work. I couldn't face him, couldn't face anyone. The video had made rounds beyond his circle. Parents at the community center looked at me differently. Some pulled their kids from the program. Marcus, my star student, asked innocently, "Miss Elena, are you only nice to us for money?" I went home and sobbed until I had nothing left. Monica, my best friend, held me through it. "This will pass," she promised. "Truth always wins." But truth felt very far away. Christopher's world had rejected me, painted me as the very thing I'd feared being seen as, a gold digger, an opportunist, someone reaching above her station. I'd been right all along. Our worlds weren't meant to collide. I returned Christopher's things and threw myself into work. The library became my sanctuary again, though whispers followed me through the stacks. Time helped. The video faded from gossip cycles. New scandals replaced old ones. But nothing replaced the ache where Christopher had been. "You look pale," Monica observed one morning, finding me hunched over the bathroom toilet at work. "Bad sushi," I lied, but we both knew better. The test later confirmed what my body had been trying to tell me. Pregnant. I stared at the plus sign until it blurred. A baby, Christopher's baby, growing inside me while the world thought I'd tried to trap him. I couldn't tell him. How could I? "Hey, remember me? The gold digger? Funny story." So I didn't. I worked extra shifts, saved every penny. My family back in Texas offered support, but pride kept me in Chicago. This was my mess, my responsibility. The twist came during my first ultrasound. "There's something we need to discuss," the doctor said gently, pointing at the screen. "Your baby's heart," the words blurred together. "Congenital defect, surgery, specialists, costs that made my knees weak." "We'll figure it out," Monica promised, but I saw the truth in her eyes. My insurance would cover basics. The surgery Gabriel needed, I'd already named him, couldn't help myself, was beyond basics, beyond my reach, beyond everything. I worked until I couldn't hide the pregnancy anymore. The library gave me modified duties, and I was grateful. Every dollar went to the Gabriel Fund. I sold everything unnecessary, moved to an even smaller apartment, ate ramen and prenatal vitamins. Christopher haunted Chicago news. Hale Group's expansion, Christopher at galas with Madeline, rekindling old flames. The gossip columns chirped. Good. He'd moved on. It was better this way. Except late at night, when Gabriel kicked and I remembered Christopher's hand on my stomach the morning after we'd first made love. "Someday," he'd whispered against my skin, "when you're ready, we'll make beautiful babies." We did, I told my swollen belly. "Just you and me now, baby boy." I made it 8 months before my body betrayed me. Premature labor, emergency delivery, and suddenly Gabriel was here, tiny, perfect, fighting. The NICU became my world, monitors and wires, and my baby boy no bigger than my hands. His heart struggled, but he was strong. My son, my miracle. "He's a fighter," the nurses said, and I believed them. He had to be. Days blurred into weeks. Gabriel grew stronger, but the surgery loomed. Final notices piled up. I'd borrowed everything possible, but it wasn't enough. Nothing was enough. "There are programs," the social worker said gently. "Aid you can apply for." "I've applied." My voice broke. "Everything has waiting lists. He doesn't have time to wait." Rock bottom felt like this. Holding your baby while machines breathed for him, knowing love wasn't enough to save him. A year had passed since I'd run from that ballroom, 11 months since Gabriel's birth, 3 weeks since his condition worsened. I lived at the hospital now, sleeping in chairs, showering in the family lounge. Gabriel had good days and bad days, but lately, the bad outnumbered good. "Miss Rivera?" Dr. Patterson's voice was gentle. "We need to discuss scheduling the surgery. I'm working on the money. I know, but Gabriel's condition is deteriorating. We can't wait much longer." The walls closed in. I'd failed. Failed my baby. Failed as a mother. Failed at the one thing that mattered. That's when I heard it. A voice that stopped my heart. "Sophie, stay with Grandma. I need to check on a friend." I turned and time stopped. Christopher stood in the hallway, older, tired, thinner than I remembered. Our eyes met across the space, and I watched realization dawn on his face. My hand on the NICU door, my hollow cheeks and sleepless eyes. The way I stood like I was guarding something precious. Elena? He moved toward me, and I saw the exact moment he spotted Gabriel through the window. Saw him counting backward, doing math that led to only one conclusion. Oh my God. His face went white. Elena, is he... Don't... I stepped between him and the door. You don't get to do this now. He's mine. Not a question. Christopher stared at Gabriel like he was seeing the sun after years underground. He's my son. He's nothing to you. Protective fury gave me strength. Where were you when I threw up every morning for 3 months? When I sold my grandmother's ring for prenatal vitamins? When they told me he might not? I broke. Couldn't finish. You never told me? Anguish twisted his features. Elena, how could you not tell me? Really? After that video? After you looked at me like I was exactly what they said? I never believed that video. I had it traced. Found proof Celeste orchestrated it. I've been looking for you for a year. A year, Elena. You disappeared and no one would tell me where... Christopher? Victoria Hale materialized like a nightmare, Madeline at her side. What are you doing in this wing? She saw me, saw Gabriel, and I watched the calculation in her eyes. The baby's obvious age, Christopher's devastation, my protective stance. Well, she said softly, this is unexpected. Mother, leave, now. Is that any way to speak to your son's grandmother? She smiled, cold as winter. Though I'll need tests, of course. One can't be too careful with accusations. Get out. Christopher's voice was deadly. If you come near my son again... Your son? Victoria laughed. My lawyers will be in touch, Miss Rivera. We'll need to discuss custody arrangements. Surely you want what's best for the child? Growing up a Hale, with every advantage, rather than... She gestured at my rumpled appearance. This. The threat hung between us. Give up Gabriel or fight the Hale Empire with nothing. I'd never hated anyone more. She can't take him. Christopher paced the hospital's family room while I sat numbly. I won't let her touch him. You won't let her? I laughed bitterly. You're still her puppet, showing up here with Madeline? I'm not with Madeline. I never was. She's engaged to someone else, for God's sake. We were at the hospital for Sophie's checkup when I saw you. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to fall into his arms and let him fix everything. But I learned the price of wanting. Gabriel needs surgery, I said instead. His heart, it's getting worse, and I can't... Shame choked me. I can't afford it. Done. No hesitation. Whatever he needs. I don't want your money. He's my son. Christopher knelt before me, desperate. Elena, I missed everything. His first breath, first smile, first... God, I missed it all. Please, let me help. Let me be his father. The door burst open. Celeste rushed in, mascara streaking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Not now, Celeste, Christopher started. No, you need to hear this. She faced me, trembling. The video was my idea. I was jealous, stupid, thought I was protecting the family. But Mother, she's planning something worse. What do you mean? Christopher stood slowly. She's already filed papers. Emergency custody, claiming Elena's an unfit mother. Poverty, unmarried status. The video, she's using everything. Celeste grabbed my hands. But I kept recordings. Every cruel thing she said, every plan she made. I'll testify against her. It won't undo what I did, but maybe... Why? I whispered. Why help me now? Because I watched her destroy my own love story. Made me choose between the family and happiness. I chose wrong. Tears ran down her perfect face. Don't let her do the same to you. Hope, fragile and painful, bloomed in my chest. Then alarms screamed from the NICU. Gabriel! I ran, Christopher beside me. Nurses surrounded my baby's incubator. Monitors shrieked warnings. He needs surgery now, Dr. Patterson said. We can't wait any longer. Do it, Christopher said. Whatever it costs, whatever he needs, do it. I need parental consent. We're his parents, Christopher said firmly, taking my hand. Both of us. Together. I squeezed back, our son's life hanging between heartbeats. Save him, please. As they wheeled Gabriel away, tiny and fighting, I broke. Christopher caught me, held me while I shattered. He's strong, he whispered into my hair. like his mother. He'll make it. What if? No what ifs. We're going to watch him grow up. Together. All three of us. Your mother? Doesn't matter anymore. He pulled back, cupping my face. Nothing matters but you and Gabriel. I choose you, Elena. I choose our family. No more Hale group. No more toxic legacy. Just us. Through tears, I saw truth in his eyes. Just us? If you'll have me, if you can forgive. I kissed him, pouring a year of pain and love and hope into the connection. We'll figure it out after Gabriel's okay. We'll figure it all out. Together. He promised. Together. The word felt like coming home. 6 months later, I watched Gabriel crawl across a sunlit floor, chasing dust motes with determination that made my heart swell. The surgery scar on his chest had faded to a thin line, proof of battles won. Mama! He reached for me, and I scooped him up, breathing in his baby smell. Getting heavy, little man. Christopher appeared in the doorway of our new home. Not a mansion, not a cramped apartment, but something in between. Something ours. He'd kept his promise. Walked away from Hale Group, started a smaller company focused on affordable housing. Victoria had raged, threatened, but Celeste's recordings and testimony had ended her power over us. The Literacy Center called, Chris said, kissing Gabriel's head, then mine. They want to know if you're ready to come back. Maybe part-time. I shifted Gabriel to my hip. This one keeps me pretty busy. We could get help. No. I softened it with a smile. I missed too much time with him already. I want to be here. Christopher understood. He'd thrown himself into fatherhood with desperate joy, making up for lost months. Late nights, early mornings, doctor appointments. He was there for everything now. Mail came. He held up an envelope. From my mother's lawyers. My stomach clenched. What now? He opened it, read, then laughed. She's conceding, dropping all claims in exchange for limited supervised visits. He looked up. Your call? I thought about it, watching Gabriel pat Christopher's face with sticky hands. Victoria had lost everything. Company control, society standing, her children's obedience. Maybe that was punishment enough. Supervised visits, I decided. Every child should know their grandmother, but on our terms. You're more forgiving than I would be. No, I looked around our sun-filled kitchen, at the man who'd chosen us over empire, at our son who'd fought to live. I'm happy, too happy to hold on to hate. Christopher set aside the letter, wrapping us both in his arms. I love you, both of you, my whole world. Dada, Gabriel agreed, clapping. That's right, baby boy. Christopher's voice thick with emotion. Dada's here, always. I leaned into them, my boys, my family. Outside, Chicago rushed on, but inside our small, perfect space, time slowed. We traveled so far from that library meeting, through doubt and betrayal, loss and fear, pride and prejudice, but we'd made it, scarred, strengthened, together. Elena? Christopher murmured against my hair. Marry me? I pulled back, startled. He was already sinking to one knee, Gabriel laughing at the game. No ring, he said, taking my hand. No grand gesture. Just me, asking the woman who changed my life, who gave me our son, who taught me what love really means. Will you marry me? Gabriel patted my face, leaving banana handprints. The kitchen needed cleaning. I probably had spit up on my shirt. It was perfectly, wonderfully real. Yes, I whispered, then louder. Yes. Christopher rose, spinning us both until Gabriel shrieked with joy, and I couldn't breathe from laughing. When he set us down, when he kissed me with promises of forever, I thought about that first day. How he'd fallen in a library, and I'd helped him up. How sometimes the best love stories begin with the simplest acts of kindness. How sometimes they end with choosing each other, over and over, against all odds. How sometimes they don't end at all. They just keep going, one page at a time, writing themselves into existence with every shared sunrise, every kiss goodnight, every I love you, whispered over a sleeping child's head. Our story was messy, complicated, real. It was ours, and it was perfect.
My name is Amelia Carter, and I'm about to tell you the story of the night my life changed forever, the night my husband abandoned me in labor, and I had to send a desperate text to a stranger. There was a moment when he slammed me against the wall, his hands around my throat, screaming, "You're betraying me. You think I'm stupid." And my mother-in-law, with eyes cold as ice, pointed her manicured finger at my face. "You've cost this family everything, but you will never take Clara from us." That was the moment I realized. If I didn't fight back, I would lose everything: my daughter, my freedom, and myself. Before I share the rest of my story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you've ever had to fight through fear. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. The contractions hit like lightning at 2:47 a.m. I remember the exact time because I'd been staring at the glowing numbers on our bedroom clock, counting the minutes between waves of pain. The Mississippi humidity pressed against our century-old windows, making the New Orleans night feel like it was breathing on the glass. "Richard," I whispered, reaching across our king-sized bed. "Empty, of course." Laughter erupted from downstairs, his poker buddies, their cigars probably already staining my grandmother's curtains. I gripped the mahogany bedpost, another contraction stealing my breath. This wasn't supposed to happen for 2 more weeks. My phone shook in my trembling hands as I called him. Straight to voicemail. Again. The 3rd time he picked up. "What?" His voice slurred with expensive whiskey. "The baby. Richard. It's coming." "Jesus, Amelia. We talked about this. You can't interrupt when I have clients over." "I'm not." A scream escaped before I could stop it. "Please, I need to get to the hospital. Take an Uber." The line went dead. I called his mother next, desperate. Evelyn Carter answered on the first ring, her voice crisp despite the hour. "Amelia, dear, having phantom pains again." "No, Evelyn, this is real. Please." "You artistic types are always so dramatic. Richard tells me you've been attention-seeking lately. Go back to sleep." The phone slipped from my fingers as another contraction doubled me over. My vision blurred. From tears or pain, I couldn't tell. In my panic, I grabbed my phone and typed a desperate message to the first number in my recent calls, not realizing it wasn't any of my blocked friends but a wrong number from a Chinese takeout order last week. "Please help, having baby. Alone." 1847. Prytania Street. Send, blood on my nightgown, no car keys. Richard had taken them months ago, for my safety. My photography equipment sat dusty in the closet, abandoned like everything else I used to be. Another contraction brought me to my knees. 23 minutes later, headlights swept across our bedroom wall. Not an ambulance, a mud-splattered pickup truck. A stranger stood at our front door, rain dripping from his construction jacket. His face was weathered, kind, with worry lines that deepened as he saw me collapsed in the foyer. "I'm Ethan," he said simply, already lifting me into his arms. "Let's get you safe." The truck smelled like sawdust and coffee. Ethan's calloused hands gripped the steering wheel as we flew through the storm-slick streets of New Orleans. Each streetlight blurred past like a prayer candle. "Breathe with me," he said, his voice steady with an accent I couldn't place. "In, out. My wife—" He stopped himself. I know what to do. I wanted to ask about the catch in his voice, but another contraction stole my words. He reached over, letting me crush his hand. "Almost there, brave one. Almost there." The hospital erupted into motion the moment Ethan carried me through the emergency doors. Nurses surrounded us, wheelchairs appeared, but he didn't let go of my hand until they forced him to. "Is your husband parking?" a nurse asked. I looked at Ethan, this stranger who'd appeared like a guardian angel. He was already backing away. "I'll stay if you need," he offered quietly. "Please?" The word came out as a sob. "I can't do this alone." For the next 6 hours, Ethan Morales became my anchor. He held my hand through the worst of it, spoke soft encouragements in English and Spanish, never once checking his phone or looking impatient. When I screamed, he didn't flinch. When I cried for my mother, dead 3 years now, he stroked my hair. "You're stronger than you know," he whispered as I pushed. "Tu bebe needs you to be strong." Clara arrived at 9:23 a.m., screaming and perfect. 7 pounds of pure fight with my dark hair and her father's stubborn chin. As the nurses cleaned her, I noticed Ethan crying, silent tears sliding down his weathered cheeks. "She's beautiful," he said, then quickly wiped his face. "I should go. Your family will want—" "Stay, please. Just until I didn't finish. Until what? Until my drunk husband decided to show up? He sat in the corner chair, guardian-like, as I held Clara for the first time. She opened her eyes, deep blue like a storm clearing, and I fell completely, irrevocably in love. "Thank you," I whispered to Ethan. "I don't even know why you came." "My Maria," he said softly, staring at his work boots. 8 years ago, she called for help. I was traveling, building hotels. By the time I got home, he shrugged, a gesture holding oceans of grief. "When I saw your message, I couldn't let another woman face that alone." Richard never came, neither did Evelyn. But as dawn broke over Lake Pontchartrain, painting my hospital room gold, I had Clara in my arms and a stranger-turned guardian angel dozing in an uncomfortable chair. When I woke from an exhausted sleep at noon, Ethan was gone. Only a business card remained on my bedside table. Morales Architecture, building dreams from foundations up. And below, in pencil, "For when you're ready to rebuild." Coming home with Clara felt like entering a beautiful prison. Richard was waiting in the foyer, flowers in hand, purple orchids, expensive and scentless. His Harvard jaw was clean-shaven, his gray eyes clear, the perfect picture of a contrite husband. "Darling, I'm so sorry. The Whitman deal kept me occupied. You understand." He kissed my forehead, then glanced at Clara like she was a particularly interesting acquisition. "She's small. She's perfect. Of course, Mother's hired a night nurse. You'll need your rest." Within days, the cage doors started closing. First, the joint bank account. Suddenly, I needed his approval for any purchase over $50. "For budgeting," he explained, though I'd managed my finances fine for years before him. Then came the cameras. "Security," Richard said, installing them in every room except the bathrooms. "New Orleans isn't safe." My phone disappeared during a software update and returned wiped clean with parental controls activated. My lactation consultant visits were canceled. Mother knows someone better. My college friends' numbers were blocked. "They're bad influences, sweetheart." I stood at my bedroom window one Tuesday, Clara sleeping against my chest, watching construction workers renovate the house across the street. My fingers itched for my camera. Before Richard, I'd had an exhibition at a Soho gallery. The Times had called my work "Haunting Portraits of Hidden Americas." Now my Leica collected dust on a shelf I couldn't reach without his permission. "Mommy was somebody once," I whispered to Clara. "Had a studio in the Bywater, traveled to document migrant workers' stories. Won awards." She gurgled, tiny fingers wrapping around mine. The walls had photos now. Richard's choices. Sterile landscapes from Restoration Hardware, replacing my grandmother's paintings. Our wedding portrait hung prominent in the parlor, me and Vera Wang, smiling like I knew what I was signing away. 3 months passed in a haze of nursing, sleeping when allowed, and dodging Evelyn's criticisms. She visited daily, rearranging my kitchen, questioning my mothering, always watching with those calculating eyes. "You're lucky," she said one afternoon, bouncing Clara with possessive efficiency. "Richard could have chosen someone more suitable, but we make do." That night, unable to sleep, I crept to the closet and pulled down my old portfolio. Hidden between prints of Louisiana fishermen and Ninth Ward grandmothers, I found them, photos I'd taken during our engagement. Richard at a warehouse near the port, shaking hands with men whose faces I'd instinctively known not to capture clearly. Money changing hands, license plates I'd photographed out of habit. My blood chilled. I recognized one face now, Vincent Torino, recently indicted for racketeering. Another man had made headlines last month, found in Lake Pontchartrain. I looked at Clara sleeping in her bassinet, then at the camera watching us from the corner. How deep did this go? And more terrifying, how would I ever get us out? The business card Ethan left was hidden in my nursing bra, soft from handling, building dreams from foundations up. But how do you rebuild when someone's watching your every move? The market crash came on a Thursday. Richard burst through the front door at noon, his perfect composure cracked like old paint. "Pack Clara's things," he barked, loosening his Italian tie. "We're moving to the lake house." "What's happening?" His backhand caught me off guard, snapping my head sideways. Clara wailed from her bouncer. In 3 years of marriage, he'd never hit me before. "Don't question me." His voice was ice. The FBI froze our accounts. Someone talked. Evelyn arrived within an hour, her silver Mercedes squealing into our circular drive. She swept in wearing Chanel and contempt, immediately taking charge. "This is what happens when you marry beneath yourself," she told Richard, as if I wasn't standing right there holding my screaming daughter. Her photographs, her artistic eye, she probably documented things she shouldn't have. I didn't. Shut up. Evelyn's manicured nail pointed at my face. "You've cost this family everything, but you won't cost us Clara." She produced a document from her purse. Lucky we prepared for this possibility. "Your signature, dear, on a custody agreement. In case of family emergency, Clara remains with the stable parent." I stared at the paper. My signature was there, but I'd never seen this document. The handwriting was close, but the A was wrong, the C too curved. I never signed this. Evelyn smiled, cold as January. "Judge Morrison disagrees. He's an old friend, from when the Carter name meant something in the city." Richard grabbed my arm, fingers digging into flesh. "You'll do as you're told, Amelia, or you'll never see her again." That night, while they strategized downstairs, I did something I'd sworn I wouldn't. I called the number on Ethan's card. Morales Architecture. "Ethan? It's Amelia. From the hospital? I need help." Silence. Then, "Where are you?" "I can't leave. They're watching." "But Clara..." My voice broke. "They're going to take her. Listen to me." His voice was calm, steady. "Document everything. Photos, recordings if you can. I know a lawyer, a real one, but you need proof." "How do you know?" "Because I built Richard a hotel in Metairie 5 years ago. Pulled out when I realized what he was washing through the construction costs. I've been waiting for him to fall." My hands shook. "He'll kill me if he finds out I called you." "No," Ethan said firmly. "He won't. Because tomorrow, you're taking Clara to her 6-month checkup, the one at Children's Hospital, and you're going to accidentally run into me in the parking lot. They'll follow me. Let them. Sometimes the best way out is straight through the watching eyes." I hung up as footsteps creaked on the stairs. Richard appeared in the doorway, silhouetted like a threat. "Who were you talking to?" "The pediatrician's office," I lied smoothly, confirming Clara's appointment. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Good, keep it." As he turned away, I felt something shift inside me. Not hope exactly, but something harder. The first spark of fight. The Children's Hospital parking lot shimmered with August heat. I saw Ethan before my minders did. He was bent over architectural plans spread on his truck hood, legitimate business in plain sight. Our eyes met across the asphalt. He gave an imperceptible nod toward the hospital entrance. Inside, Clara charmed the nurses while I filled out forms with shaking hands. Then Ethan appeared in the waiting room, construction dust on his boots, looking like any contractor on a job inspection. "Mrs. Carter?" He played it perfectly professional. "I'm the architect working on the new pediatric wing. Mind if I sit? These old bones need rest." Evelyn's hired man, reading a magazine 10 feet away, barely glanced up. Ethan slipped me a phone under the immunity of small talk about construction delays. "Burner," he whispered while pointing at fake blueprints. "My lawyer's number is saved. Her name's Carmen Santos. She doesn't lose." They forged my signature. "The judge is their friend. Carmen eats corrupt judges for breakfast." He smiled at Clara, who grabbed his offered finger. "Brave like your mama, aren't you, little one?" For 20 minutes we performed normalcy. He told me about the hospital expansion. I pretended to care about square footage, all while my lifeline sat hidden in my diaper bag. But Richard was waiting when we got home, laptop open to security footage. "Interesting conversation with Mr. Morales," he said conversationally. "The man who stole my Metairie project. I didn't know who he was." "Don't lie to me." The laptop flew across the room, shattering against the wall. Clara screamed. "You think I'm stupid? First the FBI, now this?" He grabbed my throat, pressing me against the wall. "You're working with them, feeding them information. I can't breathe." "Richard." Evelyn's voice cut through his rage. "Not where the cameras can see." He released me, and I collapsed, gasping. Clara's cries echoed through the house. "You've gotten sloppy," Evelyn told her son coldly. "Emotional." Like your father. She turned to me. We're filing tomorrow. Abandonment, mental instability, and this time you'll sign the real papers, or things will get unpleasant. That night, I used the burner phone from the bathroom, whispering under running water. Carmen Santos answered on the second ring. Ethan told me about you. Can you get somewhere safe? No, they're watching everything. Then we go nuclear. I need you to record everything. Every threat, every bruise. Louisiana is a one-party consent state. Your phone is your weapon now. What if they catch me? Then we'll have assault charges to add to the fraud. Either way, we win. I stared at my reflection, bruises blooming on my throat like purple flowers. I used to document injustice with my camera. Guess some habits die hard. Good, Carmen said, because tomorrow they'll make their move, and we'll be ready. Justice loves a paper trail. Clara's cries had quieted. Somewhere in this house, my daughter slept, unaware her future balanced on a knife's edge. The courtroom smelled like old wood and lies. Richard's legal team filled one side, 3 lawyers in suits that cost more than most people's cars. I sat with Carmen Santos, who wore a simple black dress and an expression like a prizefighter. Your Honor, Richard's lead attorney began, we have clear evidence of Mrs. Carter's instability, postpartum psychosis, paranoid delusions about her husband's business. They presented their fiction beautifully. Falsified medical records showing psychiatric appointments I'd never attended. Testimony from a Dr. Brennan, whom I'd never met, claiming I'd threatened to harm Clara. Photos taken out of context. Me crying from Richard's abuse. Me looking disheveled after nights of Clara's colic. I felt the world tilting, their money and connections rewriting reality. Then Carmen stood. Your Honor, I'd like to call Lucas Zimmerman. Richard went rigid. His assistant, loyal Lucas, who'd worked for him 7 years, walked to the stand like a man approaching the gallows. Mr. Zimmerman, Carmen began, you recently approached my client with information. Why? Lucas stared at Richard with naked hatred. Because he destroyed my sister. The courtroom shifted. Even the judge leaned forward. Rebecca was 19, Lucas continued, intern at Carter Industries. Richard pursued her. When she got pregnant, he had her committed to a psychiatric facility, said she was delusional. The same Dr. Brennan signed her papers. Objection, Richard's lawyer shouted. Relevance? Establishing a pattern, Your Honor, Carmen said smoothly. Mr. Zimmerman, what happened to Rebecca? She killed herself 6 months later. The baby died too. Lucas's voice broke. I kept working for him, waiting for my chance. When I saw him doing the same thing to his wife. Essel, Carmen produced recordings. Lucas had worn a wire for weeks. Richard's voice filled the courtroom, discussing forged documents, bribing judges, handling me like I was a problem to solve. The judge's face darkened with each revelation. But I knew Richard's lawyers would find a way to discredit Lucas, to twist the narrative. Money always won. That's when Carmen played her ace. I'd like to submit financial records obtained through federal subpoena. Mr. Carter's alleged fortune, built on fraud. FBI investigation confirms he's been laundering money for the Torino crime family. Every asset, including this law firm's retainer, is frozen pending federal charges. Richard lunged across the courtroom. You bitch! You destroyed everything! Bailiffs restrained him as he screamed threats. Evelyn sat frozen. Her perfect composure finally cracked. The judge called a recess, and Carmen guided me to a quiet corner. We're not done, she warned. They'll regroup. But Lucas gave us what we needed. Doubt. And doubt is all we need to. The fire alarm shrieked. Smoke poured under the courthouse doors. In the chaos of evacuation, I lost sight of Clara's stroller. Clara! I screamed, pushing through the crowd. Where's my baby? The parking lot was pandemonium. Then I saw her, Evelyn, carrying Clara to a black town car. No! I ran, but the car was already pulling away, my daughter's cries lost in the sirens. The safe house was a converted warehouse in the Marigny, one of Carmen's client properties. Ethan paced while I sat frozen, Clara's pink blanket clutched in my hands. 24 hours, Carmen said, phone pressed to her ear. The FBI says they'll have search warrants by morning. She could be anywhere by morning. My voice sounded dead, even to me. Ethan knelt beside my chair. We'll find her. Lucas is tracking their properties. Richard's assets are frozen, but Evelyn has hidden accounts. Under the name Eleanor Williams, Lucas announced, bursting through the door with a laptop. Her maiden name. I've been documenting everything for 3 years, waiting for this moment. He pulled up financial records, property deeds, a web of corruption spanning decades. She owns a compound in Terrebonne Parish. Bought it last year through a shell company. Private airstrip. If she's planning to run, Carmen started. She's not running. I stood, sudden clarity cutting through grief. She wants Clara. Always has. Richard was just the means to get a grandchild she could control. I thought of Evelyn's calculating eyes, her comments about Clara's potential, her obsession with legacy. She killed her first husband. Richard told me once, drunk. Made it look like a heart attack. She's been building this empire for 50 years. Jesus, Lucas breathed. I found something else. Dr. Brennan. He's dead. Car accident last week. Right after the subpoenas went out. Carmen was already on the phone with federal marshals. Ethan loaded guns I didn't know he owned, but I was looking at my old camera bag, the one Richard had shoved in the closet. I'm done being the victim in their story. Inside the bag, memory cards from 3 years of marriage. Richard thought I'd stop documenting, but artists never really stop seeing. Every suspicious meeting, every bruise, every threat, I'd captured it all, a habit deeper than fear. Holy shit, Lucas said, scrolling through the images. This is evidence of everything. Money laundering, assault, conspiracy. Amelia, you've been building a case without knowing it. We worked through the night, Carmen filing emergency motions, federal agents preparing raids. At dawn, my burner phone rang. Unknown number. You always were too clever. Evelyn's voice was ice, but not clever enough to keep her safe. If you hurt her, hurt my granddaughter, don't be dramatic. I'm saving her from you. From Richard's weakness, your poverty mindset. She'll be raised properly. A true Carter. She's a Morales, I heard myself say. Her middle name. Clara Esperanza Morales Carter. Hope. Something you never had. Silence. Then, you named her after him, that Mexican laborer. That man showed more love in one night than your family has in generations. Love. She spit the word. Love is weakness. Power is empty. Power is empty, Evelyn. And Clara will never be empty like you. She hung up. But Lucas was grinning. He'd traced the call. The warehouse district, near the port where it all began. Carmen grabbed my arm as I headed for the door. Let the FBI... No. I picked up my camera. This ends the way it started, with me fighting for my daughter. The warehouse squatted against the dawn sky like a rust-covered beast. FBI vehicles surrounded it, but I walked straight to the main entrance, Ethan beside me. Mrs. Carter. Agent Rivera stepped forward. You can't. It's my daughter in there. I kept walking. And my mother-in-law wants to talk. She always loved an audience. Inside, industrial shadows swallowed everything except a pool of light in the center. Evelyn sat there like a queen in exile, Clara in an antique bassinet beside her. Predictable, she said, not looking up from Clara's face. You always were sentimental. Let me have my daughter, Evelyn. Your daughter? She laughed, bitter as burned coffee. I built an empire, crushed men who thought they could stop me, turned Richard from nothing into something, even if he proved too weak to hold it. Richard emerged from the shadows, a gun trembling in his hand, but he wasn't pointing it at us. He aimed at his mother. Weak? His voice cracked. You made me weak. Every choice, every crime, every lie, all to meet your impossible standards. Don't be pathetic, Richard. You loved the money, the power. I loved feeling like your son. The gun shook harder. Just once, I wanted to hear you say you were proud, but nothing was ever enough. Not the business, not the marriage, not even giving you a grandchild. I inched toward Clara, but Evelyn's hand shot out, gripping the bassinet. Stay back. Both of you disappointments. At least Clara is still pure, untainted by your failures. She's 6 months old, I said softly. She doesn't need an empire. She needs love. Love? Evelyn's composure finally shattered completely. Love got me a husband who preferred his secretary. Love got me a son who couldn't even launder money properly. Love is a luxury I carved out of myself 50 years ago. Then you carved out everything that mattered. The words came from Ethan, stepping into the light. I had love, lost it. But those 8 years with Maria meant more than any building I've designed, any success I've achieved. Your granddaughter deserves to know that feeling. You, Evelyn's face twisted. The nobody who thinks he can... The nobody who helped bring her into this world, Ethan said calmly, who'll make sure she knows she's valued for more than her last name. Sirens wailed closer. Richard's gun clattered to the floor as FBI agents flooded in. In the chaos, Evelyn made one last grab for Clara. I moved without thinking, muscle memory from documenting dangerous situations. My camera came up, the flash blinding Evelyn for just a second, long enough for me to scoop Clara into my arms. She was warm, perfect, alive. She opened her storm blue eyes and smiled, recognizing me despite everything. "It's over," Agent Rivera said, cuffing a eerily calm Evelyn. Richard didn't resist as they led him away. But I was already walking toward the door, toward the light spilling across the Mississippi, Clara safe against my chest and Ethan steady beside us. 6 months later, I held my first photography exhibition in 5 years. After the storm, Portraits of Survival opened at a small gallery in the Bywater. The centerpiece was a series documenting my own journey. Shadows giving way to light, imprisonment to freedom. Clara played in a corner while visitors studied my work. She crawled now, exploring everything with fearless curiosity. Ethan built her a special play area, safe but not constraining. "She's going to be an artist," he said, watching her stack blocks with intense concentration. "Maybe. Or maybe she'll build things, design homes where people feel safe." "Why not both?" I smiled, adjusting my camera for another shot. The afternoon light was perfect, golden and forgiving. Clara laughed, reaching for Ethan, who scooped her up with practiced ease. Through my lens, I saw them clearly. Not a replacement family, not a fairy tale ending, but something more honest. 2 people who'd survived loss, choosing to build something new from the wreckage. A little girl who would grow up knowing she was worth more than her name or inheritance. A woman reclaiming her art, her voice, her power to document truth. The federal case would take years. Richard cooperated for a reduced sentence. Evelyn hired new lawyers, fought every charge. But none of that mattered in this moment, in this light, in this life I was building one frame at a time. "Take the picture," Ethan said, smiling as Clara grabbed his nose. I did, capturing joy after sorrow, hope after fear. The shutter clicked and I knew this was the story I'd been meant to tell all along. Not one of victimhood, but of survival. Not of darkness, but of the light that follows, always follows, if we're brave enough to seek it. Outside, New Orleans hummed with life. The Mississippi rolled on, carrying away what was toward what could be. And in a small gallery in the Bywater, surrounded by witnesses to my journey, I finally felt free. Clara reached for me, and I set down the camera. Some moments were too precious to document. Some stories were meant to be lived. "My name is Isabella Ramirez." And the moment the doctor dropped his stethoscope after seeing my daughter's eyes changed everything. 10 years ago, he walked away. For 10 years, I kept a secret. And right there in that cold hospital room, when Sophia opened her eyes, gray-blue just like his, my whole world collapsed. How old is she? 8. And in his eyes, I saw an ocean of pain I was never ready to face. That was only the beginning of the truths, the tears, and the family battles that shattered my heart, before making me stronger than ever. Before I share the rest of my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you've ever fought through something for your family. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. The fluorescent lights in Denver Children's Hospital made everything look pale and sick. I gripped Sophia's small hand as she lay unconscious on the gurney, her dark hair fanned across the white pillow like spilled ink. My baby girl had collapsed during recess. One moment laughing with friends, the next crumpled on the playground like a broken doll. "Please, somebody help her," I whispered to no one, to everyone. The curtain yanked back and time stopped. Not because help had arrived, but because the help wore a face I'd spent 10 years trying to forget. Dr. Nathaniel Carter stood there in his white coat, all sharp angles and careful movements, exactly as I remembered. Only now silver touched his temples where youth once lived. His eyes, Those damned gray-blue eyes found mine first, then dropped to Sophia. The clipboard in his hand trembled. Just once. Just enough. Bella? My name came out strangled, like he was choking on a decade of silence. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only watch as he moved to Sophia's side with hands that had once traced poetry on my skin. Professional now, distant, until he really looked at her face. The stethoscope slipped from his fingers, clattering on the linoleum. He stared at Sophia's closed eyes, at the shape of her nose, the curve of her jaw, but mostly at her eyes when they fluttered open, gray-blue like winter storms like his. "Mommy?" Sophia's voice, weak but there, shattered the moment. "I'm here, baby. The doctor's going to help you." Nate's hands shook as he retrieved his stethoscope. Our eyes met over Sophia's small body, and I saw the question forming, the terrible understanding dawning. I turned away, but not before catching his reflection in the metal IV stand. A man realizing he might have lost more than just a college girlfriend 10 years ago. "How old is she?" His voice came out raw, unprofessional. 8. The word fell between us like a stone in still water, ripples spreading outward, touching everything. He closed his eyes, and I watched him do the math. When he opened them again, they held an ocean of pain I wasn't ready to navigate. Not here, not with Sophia between us, small and fragile, and mine. 3 hours later, Sophia slept peacefully in a private room. Low blood sugar and exhaustion, nothing serious. But everything felt serious with Nate, haunting the doorway like a ghost who'd learned to breathe again. "We need to talk," he said, still in that careful doctor voice that didn't match the earthquake in his eyes. "No, we don't." I adjusted Sophia's blanket for the 10th time, anything to avoid looking at him. "You made your choice, Harvard Medical, your father's legacy. Remember?" "Bella, don't." The word cracked like a whip. "You don't get to Bella me. Not after 10 years of nothing." He stepped into the room, and I hated how my treacherous heart still recognized his presence, how the air changed when he moved through it. "Those eyes, Bella. She has my mother's eyes, my eyes." I laughed, brittle and sharp. "Lots of people have blue eyes. Gray-blue with gold flecks around the iris. With that exact same pattern." His voice dropped. "I've seen those eyes in the mirror every day of my life." Sophia stirred, and we both froze. She'd always been perceptive, too smart for her own good. I smoothed her hair, humming the lullaby I'd sung since she was born, the same melody Nate used to play on his guitar in our tiny apartment near campus. He recognized it. I saw the impact, watched him grip the doorframe like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "You kept her from me." Not an accusation, just broken understanding. "You left." My voice stayed steady, but my hands betrayed me, trembling against Sophia's cheek. "That last night, you stood in my doorway with your acceptance letter and your father's plane ticket, and you chose them. Your family, your future. Everything but us." "I was 22, Bella. My father threatened to—" "I was 21 and pregnant." The words I'd never said aloud to him hung in the antiseptic air. 3 weeks after you left, I found out. And you were already gone, already becoming the surgeon your family demanded." His legs gave out. He sank into the visitor's chair, head in his hands. Dr. Nathaniel Carter, who'd probably saved hundreds of lives, couldn't save us from drowning in the past. "Why didn't you tell me?" I finally looked at him, really looked, found the boy I'd loved beneath the successful man he'd become. Would it have changed anything? Would you have defied your father, given up Harvard, chosen us? His silence was answer enough. We both knew the Carter family didn't accept anything less than perfection, and a pregnant Latina girlfriend waiting tables didn't fit their blueprint. Sophia's hand found mine in her sleep, small fingers curling around my thumb, my anchor, my reason for surviving every hard day since. Word traveled fast in hospitals. By the next morning, I caught nurses whispering, their eyes tracking between Nate and Sophia whenever he checked on her. One bold one even said, "She's got Dr. Carter's eyes, doesn't she?" Loud enough for me to hear. I wanted to run, pack up Sophia and disappear like we'd done before when questions got too close. But she needed monitoring, needed rest, needed things I couldn't give her in our cramped apartment above the diner where I worked doubles to keep us afloat. "Mommy, Why does that doctor keep staring at me? Sophia asked over her hospital breakfast, too observant as always. My coffee turned to ash in my mouth. He's just making sure you're getting better, baby. She tilted her head, that gesture so purely Nate it stole my breath. He looks sad, and his eyes look like mine. Nobody else has eyes like mine. Before I could answer, Megan burst through the door. My best friend, my lifeline, the only person who knew the whole truth. She took one look at my face and gathered Sophia into a hug. Hey, sunshine, I brought you something. She pulled out a worn copy of Harry Potter, Sophia's favorite. How about we read while your mom gets some air? I escaped to the hospital's rooftop garden, where Denver sprawled below in morning light. 10 years I'd protected this secret. 10 years of deflecting questions, of Father's Day projects that made Sophia cry, of watching her search crowds for a face she'd never seen. She asked about me. Nate's voice came from behind. Of course he'd found me. He'd always been able to find me. She asks about her father sometimes. I kept my eyes on the mountains. I tell her he had important things to do far away. Important things. He laughed, bitter and hollow. I've performed surgeries on senators' children, saved lives, built exactly the career my father demanded, and all of it feels like nothing compared to what I missed. I turned then, anger flaring hot and familiar. You don't get to play victim here, Nate. You made choices, I made mine. I chose her. Every single day I chose her. And I never got the chance to choose. He stepped closer and I saw tears, actual tears on his face. You decided for both of us. You decided when you left. My voice broke. When you looked me in the eyes and said your father was right, that we were too young, too different, that I'd hold you back. I was an idiot, a coward. He reached out, stopped just short of touching me. But Bella, she's my daughter. I can see it in every gesture, every expression. She even chews her lip when she's thinking, just like you. I finished, exhausted by the weight of it all. I know. I've watched her become you in 1,000 small ways, and it breaks my heart every single time. The city noise faded around us. 10 years collapsed into nothing. We were just two people who'd loved wrong and lost everything. What do we do now? He asked. I wished I knew. The storm arrived in designer heels and a power suit that cost more than I made in 3 months. Veronica Carter clicked into Sophia's hospital room like she owned it, which, given the Carter family donations, she probably did. So this is the child. She studied Sophia with cold eyes while my daughter slept. My investigators worked quickly. Get out. I moved between them, mother bear instincts flaring. Investigators? Nate appeared in the doorway, face dark with anger I'd never seen before. Veronica, what have you done? His sister's smile could have frozen hell. Protected our family, as always. Did you really think I wouldn't notice you've been haunting this room? That I wouldn't investigate why the great Dr. Carter suddenly can't focus on his surgeries? She's 8 years old, I said. Whatever problem you have with me, you're the problem. Veronica's manicured nail pointed at me like a weapon. A waitress who thinks she can trap my brother with a child who probably isn't even his. Veronica! Nate's voice cracked like thunder, but his sister continued, pulling out her phone. I've already arranged for a DNA test, a real one, at a proper facility, not some emotional guess based on eye color. Mommy? Sophia's voice, small and confused. Why is everyone yelling? My heart shattered. I gathered her close, felt her trembling. It's okay, baby. Just adults talking. She said I'm a trap. Sophia looked up at me with those damned Carter eyes now filling with tears. What does that mean? Nate crossed the room in 2 strides. Your mother loves you more than all the stars in the sky. That's all that matters. He knelt beside the bed and Sophia studied him with that intense focus she'd inherited from someone who wasn't me. You have eyes like mine, she whispered. The room froze. Even Veronica stopped typing on her phone. Nate's voice came out rough. Yeah, I do. Nobody else does. Mommy says they're special. They are special, just like you. Veronica's harsh laugh shattered the moment. How touching, but sentiment doesn't change facts. The test is scheduled for tomorrow. We'll have results within 72 hours and then what? I stood, fury overtaking fear. You'll make us disappear? Pay us off? Threaten me like your family threatened Nate 10 years ago? Something shifted in Nate's face. What do you mean, threatened? Veronica went still, too still. You didn't know? I laughed, wild and broken. Your father visited me 2 weeks after you left. Made it very clear what would happen if I interfered with your future. How my scholarship would vanish, my job, any hope of finishing college. Made sure I understood the Carter family doesn't accept obstacles. No. Nate turned to his sister. Tell me he didn't. Veronica lifted her chin. Father protected you, as he always has. That girl would have ruined everything we built for you. That girl was carrying my child. The words exploded from him. So she claims. But Veronica's confidence cracked. The test will prove what I already know. Nate's voice turned to ice. Get out, now. And if you come near them again, sister or not, I'll make sure everyone in Denver society knows exactly what kind of family we really are. Veronica left, but her threat lingered like smoke. The war for Sophia had begun. The DNA test happened at a different hospital, neutral ground. I held Sophia's hand while they swabbed her cheek, watched Nate do the same. The technicians sealed everything with excessive care, Veronica's lawyers hovering like vultures. 3 days, 72 hours of hell. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, could only work my shifts at the diner and pretend my world wasn't imploding. Sophia, finally home from the hospital, sensed everything despite my fake smiles. Is Dr. Nate my daddy? She asked over breakfast on day 2, simple as breathing. My hands stilled on her braids. Why do you ask that, baby? Maria at school says I look just like him, and he has our eyes, and he looked at you like Miguel's dad looks at his mom. 8 years old and already too wise. I finished her hair, buying time. Would it matter to you? If he was? She considered this with devastating seriousness. Would he stay? Or would he leave like he left you? My child. My brilliant, broken child who'd heard too many whispered conversations, understood too much. I don't know, baby. People are complicated. You're not complicated. You always stay. I pulled her close, breathed in her strawberry shampoo and little girl dreams. Always, baby, no matter what. The results came on a Thursday. Veronica had arranged a family meeting at the Carter estate. Neutral ground, she called it. I'd never felt smaller than walking up those marble steps, Sophia's hand in mine, wearing my only decent dress. The foyer could have swallowed our entire apartment. Sophia pressed closer, overwhelmed. I wanted to run, but Nate appeared, strain evident in every line of his body. Whatever happens, he said quietly, I need you to know, I've thought about you every day, both of you, even when I didn't know she existed. Before I could respond, we were ushered into a study that reeked of old money and older grudges. Henry Carter sat behind a massive desk, Veronica at his right hand. Margaret Carter perched on a leather sofa, diamonds glittering like tears. Let's dispense with pleasantries, Henry said. The results? Veronica opened an envelope with theatrical precision. Her face went white. 99.97% probability. She read, voice flat. Nathaniel Carter is the biological father. The words hung there. Truth, finally. Then Henry spoke. Unfortunate, but manageable. Miss Ramirez, we're prepared to offer. No. Nate's voice cut through. No offers, no payments, no threats. Nathaniel, Margaret began. I have a daughter. He looked at Sophia, who watched everything with those shared eyes. I missed 8 years, birthday parties, first days of school, teaching her to ride a bike. I won't miss any more. Mommy, Sophia tugged my hand. Are they talking about me? I knelt down. Yeah, baby. They're talking about you. She looked around the room, at these strangers who shared her blood but not her life. Then, with the devastating honesty of children, I don't like it here. Can we go home? Home. Our tiny apartment with its leaky faucet and neighbors who argued too loud. But ours. This isn't over, Henry warned as we stood to leave. Yes, it is. I found strength in Sophia's hand. We don't want your money. We don't need your approval. We've done fine without you. We left them in their marble prison, but I knew the real battle was just beginning. The custody papers arrived 5 days later. Emergency hearing, unfit mother, unstable environment, every word designed to wound. I sat on my bathroom floor at 2 a.m., legal documents scattered around me, sobbing silently so Sophia wouldn't hear. 8 years of being enough, and now lawyers would reduce us to income brackets and square footage. A knock interrupted my breakdown. Not the door, the window. Nate perched on the fire escape in jeans and a t-shirt, looking nothing like the polished doctor. "Let me in, Bella, please." Against every instinct, I did. He climbed through awkwardly, too tall for the small space, and sat beside me on the cold tile. "I didn't know," he said, scanning the papers. "I swear I didn't know they'd do this. They're your family." "No," he turned to me, fierce. "You and Sophia, you're my family. I just didn't know it yet." "Don't." I pulled away. "Don't make promises you can't keep. When they threaten your career, your inheritance, your perfect life." "What perfect life?" He laughed, broken. "I live in a condo that looks like a hotel. I work 18-hour days. I haven't dated anyone seriously because they all blur into you. That's not perfect, Bella. That's empty. We can't afford lawyers who charge more per hour than I make in a week. Then it's good I already hired the best family attorney in Colorado." He pulled out his phone, showed me an email. "Hannah Kim. She doesn't just win, she destroys. And she has a particular hatred for wealthy families who think money equals morality." I stared at him. "Why would you? Your father will—" "I don't care what he does, but I care what Sophia thinks, what you think." His hand found mine. "I care that she asked you if I'd leave again. I need to prove I won't. Nate, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but please let me fight for you this time, both of you." The bathroom light flickered, old wiring, like everything in this building. But in that unsteady light, I saw something I hadn't let myself see in 10 years. Not the boy who left, but the man who came back. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay." The next weeks blurred into legal strategies and court preparations, but also unexpected moments, Nate showing up with groceries because he bought too much. Sophia shyly teaching him her favorite card game. The three of us eating takeout while Hannah Kim turned the Carter family history into ammunition. "Your father had 2 children with his secretary while married to your mother." Hannah read from her research, grinning like a shark. "Veronica got a DUI she paid to bury. Your mother has been seeing a psychiatrist for 20 years. Glass houses, meet stones." "I don't want to destroy them," Nate said. "Just stop them." "Sometimes those are the same thing." Hannah's expression softened. "They tried to steal your child, Nate. In my book, that means war." Sophia wandered in, rubbing sleepy eyes. Without hesitation, she crawled into Nate's lap. He froze, uncertain, until she settled against his chest with complete trust. "You can hug me," she said simply, "if you want." His arms came around her like he was holding spun glass. Over her head, our eyes met. For the first time in 10 years, I let myself hope. The courtroom smelled like wood polish and broken dreams. I sat between Hannah and Nate, watching the Carter legal team arrange their weapons. Across the aisle, Henry and Veronica wore matching expressions of cold certainty. Then Megan rushed in, breathless. "Bella, I'm sorry I'm late, but I had to stop at the hospital first." She handed Hannah a manila envelope. Inside, DNA test results, but not the ones we expected. "Dr. Hannah Lee from the genetics lab found something," Megan explained. "The test Veronica submitted? It's been tampered with. The seal numbers don't match. Someone tried to swap the samples." The judge called order. What followed was a massacre in legal terms. Hannah destroyed them methodically. Financial records showing Henry's payments to make problems disappear. Evidence of Veronica's tampering. But the killing blow came from an unexpected source. "I'd like to call Margaret Carter." Nate's mother took the stand like Marie Antoinette approaching the guillotine. Under oath, the truth emerged. "Did you receive a letter from Isabella Ramirez 10 years ago?" Margaret's hands trembled. "Yes." "What did it say?" "That she was pregnant, that she needed to reach my son." "And what did you do with that letter?" Silence stretched, then barely audible. "I burned it." The courtroom erupted. I couldn't breathe. Nate's face went white, then red, then something beyond color. "You knew," his voice carried across the room. "You knew she was pregnant." Margaret's composure cracked. "We'd invested everything in your future. I couldn't let— You stole 8 years from me, from my daughter." I protected you. You protected yourself. He stood, and I saw the moment he severed every tie. You're not my mother. Not anymore. The judge had seen enough. Full custody to me, generous visitation for Nate, restraining orders against the rest. We won. But watching Nate's family shatter, I wondered if anyone really won when love became a battlefield. Outside, Sophia waited with a social worker. She ran to us, both of us, and for the first time, we stood together like what we were, a family forged in pain but somehow still standing. 3 months later, I stood at the edge of the Grand Canyon, Sophia between Nate and me. We'd driven here in his sensible SUV, packed with too many snacks and her entire library. It's so big, Sophia breathed, wonder in her voice. Sometimes the biggest things take time to see clearly, Nate said, but he wasn't looking at the canyon. We'd been traveling for 2 weeks, not running away but finding our rhythm. 3 people learning to be something new. Mom? Sophia took my hand. Are we going home soon? Home. The question I'd been avoiding. Ethan had called twice, my old friend who'd loved us safely, quietly, without complications. The diner held my job. Our apartment waited. But Nate had shown Sophia how to read x-rays, taught her constellations, held my hand through nightmares about losing her. He'd chosen us over everything. What do you think home is, baby? She looked between us, wise beyond her years. Where we're all together. I met Nate's eyes over her head, saw my future there, complicated and imperfect and real. Then yeah, I said, we're going home. A letter waited in my bag, one I'd written but never sent 10 years ago. Maybe someday I'd show them both. For now, we had sunset painting the canyon gold and Sophia's laughter echoing off ancient stones. Destiny had opened the door, but we were choosing to walk through it together. The biggest things do take time to see clearly. My name is Isabella Ramirez, and my life took a turn I never saw coming. The day I carried my son into the ER, I came face to face with the man who once walked away from me. Now the doctor saving my child's life. But the true climax came when I looked into Ethan's eyes, and knew without a doubt, Ethan has his father's eyes. That was only the beginning of secrets, betrayals, and distorted truths surrounding the powerful Walker family. Before I share my full story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments, hit the like button, and subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. The rain hammered against my windshield as I carried Ethan into the emergency room, his small body convulsing in my arms. 9 years of being his only shield against the world, and I'd never felt more helpless. My scrubs were soaked through. I'd rushed straight from my shift when the school called. Please, someone help! My voice cracked as I stumbled through the automatic doors. Then I saw him. 11 years dissolved in an instant. Dr. Nathaniel Walker stood at the nurse's station, those same ocean blue eyes that once promised me forever, now wearing a white coat and a wedding ring. My knees nearly buckled, but Ethan's weight kept me anchored. Get him to Trauma Bay 2, Nate commanded, professional mask sliding over his features. But I caught the flicker, recognition, shock, maybe even pain, before he turned away. I followed on autopilot, my mind spinning between past and present. Ethan's seizure, Nate's hands, steady, competent, saving my son. The same hands that once traced promises on my skin. Mom? Ethan's voice was weak as the medication took effect. Why are you crying? I hadn't realized I was. Swiping at my cheeks, I forced a smile. You scared me, baby, but you're okay now. Nate's pen stilled over the chart. In the harsh fluorescent light, I could see the silver threading through his temple. The lines that 11 years had etched around his eyes. When he looked up, something raw flickered across his face. We need to run some tests, he said, voice carefully neutral. Has Ethan had seizures before? No. The word came out strangled. I cleared my throat. Never? The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken history. I wanted to run, to grab Ethan and disappear into the rain-soaked night. But my son needed help, and the universe had a sick sense of humor, making his father the one to provide it. Isabella, Nate started. It's Izzy. I cut him off. Or Miss Ramirez, if you prefer. Now please just help my son. He nodded slowly, and I saw the moment he truly looked at Ethan. The way his breath caught. The slight tremor in his hand as he reached for his stethoscope. because even through the medical equipment and the harsh hospital lighting, one thing was undeniable. Ethan had his father's eyes. The next morning brought questions I wasn't ready to answer. Nate cornered me in the family lounge while Ethan slept, his face a storm of emotions I'd once known how to read. "How old is he?" His voice was quiet, dangerous. I kept my eyes on my coffee cup. 9. 9. He did the math aloud. So that would make him, "Doctor, why does your eyes look just like mine?" We both turned. Ethan stood in the doorway, ivy pole in tow, those unmistakable blue eyes curious and innocent. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Nate knelt to Ethan's level, his professional composure cracking. That's a good question, buddy." He glanced at me, and I saw the plea there, the need to know. "Ethan, honey, go back to bed. I'll be right there." My voice shook. After he shuffled away, Nate stood slowly. "Is he mine?" The question hung between us like a blade. I thought of all the nights I'd rehearsed this moment, all the angry speeches I'd prepared. But now, faced with his presence, I could only remember the girl who'd loved him with every atom of her being. "You left," I whispered. "You chose Boston, chose your family's plan for your life. That's not—" He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture achingly familiar. "Is he? Is Ethan my son?" I met his eyes then, let him see 11 years of struggle, of single motherhood, of explaining to a little boy why he didn't have a daddy like other kids. "What do you think?" His face crumpled. "Oh God, Izzy, I didn't know. I swear I didn't, because you never asked." The words came out bitter. "You got your acceptance letter and suddenly I wasn't part of your 5-year plan. Your mother made that very clear." "My mother?" Confusion flickered across his features. I laughed, harsh and bitter. "Don't pretend she didn't celebrate when you left the girl from the wrong side of town behind." Before he could respond, a commotion erupted from Ethan's room. We rushed in to find him seizing again, worse than before. As Nate barked orders and nurses flooded in, I pressed myself against the wall, watching the father save the son he'd never known existed. Later, as Ethan stabilized, I noticed Nate filling out forms. Under father's medical history, his pen hovered, trembling. "We need complete information," he said quietly. "For Ethan's sake." I nodded, the first crack in my armor. For Ethan's sake. That night, as Ethan slept between tests, I found myself in the hospital chapel, the weight of 11 years pressed down on me, and for the first time in forever, I let myself remember. I was 19 when Nate Walker walked into my life. He was everything I wasn't, wealthy, polished, destined for greatness. But in the coffee shop where I worked doubles to pay for community college, he saw me, really saw me. "You're going to be an amazing nurse," he'd said, watching me bandage a customer's burned hand with supplies from my backpack. 6 months later, I was pregnant, and he was accepted to Harvard Medical School. The memory of that last night still burned. His mother's check on the table, her cold eyes, the words, "My son has a future. Don't ruin it with your mistake." I never told him about the baby. Pride, maybe, or fear that he'd stay out of obligation. I disappeared from his life as surgically as he'd been removed from mine. The chapel door creaked. Margaret Walker stood there, 11 years older but still immaculate, still terrifying. "I heard my son has taken a special interest in a patient," she said, settling beside me with predatory grace, my hands clenched. "Your grandson, though I'm sure you figured that out." She studied me with those calculating eyes. "Have I?" "Don't." My voice was steel. "Don't you dare come here and—" "I came to see the child," she interrupted. "To see if he's truly Nathaniel's, or if this is some scheme." I was on my feet before I realized it. Scheme. I've raised that boy alone for 9 years, worked 3 jobs, missed his first words because I was cleaning office buildings, held him through every fever, every nightmare, every time he asked why he didn't have a daddy. My voice broke. "I never asked you for anything, never asked him, so don't you dare." "Mom." Ethan stood in the doorway, pale and shaky. I rushed to him, ignoring Margaret entirely. "What are you doing up, baby?" "I had a bad dream." His eyes found Margaret. "Who's that?" Before I could answer, Margaret stood. "Nobody important, child." But her voice wavered, seeing those familiar blue eyes in a small, sick face. As I tucked Ethan back into bed, I felt her watching from the doorway. When I finally looked back, she was gone, but something had shifted in her expression. The first crack in the Walker fortress. The DNA test was Nate's idea, performed quietly, professionally. I agreed because I had nothing to hide. Ethan was his. One look at them side by side confirmed what my heart had always known. But when the results came back, the world tilted off its axis. Negative match. Nate's voice was hollow. He's not mine. I stared at the paper in his hands, the words swimming before my eyes. That's impossible. The lab doesn't lie, Izzy. His professional mask was back, but I saw the devastation underneath. I'm sorry, I need some air. He left me standing there, holding the impossible results. Within hours, the whispers started. By morning, I was summoned to HR. We've had some concerns raised, the administrator said, not meeting my eyes. About your situation with Dr. Walker. My son is a patient here, I managed. That's all. But it wasn't all. Someone had leaked the story. Single mother tries to trap successful doctor with false paternity claims. My colleagues, who'd worked beside me for years, now whispered when I passed. Ethan, recovering but sensitive, noticed immediately. Why is everyone being weird? He asked as I wheeled him to another test. Don't worry about it, baby. But he did worry, my sensitive, brilliant boy who'd inherited his father's analytical mind along with his eyes. He heard the whispers, saw the pointing, felt the shift in how people treated us. The final straw came when I found him crying in the bathroom, a cruel note clutched in his hand. Your mom's a liar and a gold digger. Is it true? He asked, those blue eyes swimming with tears. Did you lie about my dad? My knees hit the cold tile as I pulled him close. Never. I would never lie to you. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I investigated, pulled in favors, accessed records I shouldn't have. And there it was, a discrepancy in the chain of custody, a signature that didn't match, a timestamp that made no sense. Someone had tampered with the test, but who and why? My phone buzzed. An unknown number, a single text. Stop digging or lose everything. I looked at Ethan, finally sleeping peacefully, and felt something I hadn't felt in 11 years. Not just anger or hurt or betrayal, fear, because someone was playing a dangerous game with our lives, and I was starting to realize we were all pawns. The question was, who was moving the pieces? Claire arrived like a perfectly manicured storm, all designer suits and predatory smiles. Nate's ex-fiancée, the woman Margaret had chosen for him, the future that was supposed to be. Izzy, isn't it? She cornered me in the cafeteria. I heard about your predicament. How embarrassing for you. I kept my voice steady. My son's health is my only concern. Of course. Her smile was sharp, though one wonders what kind of mother puts her child through such public scrutiny for a payday. Something snapped. You know what? I'm done. I stood, abandoning my untouched coffee. Done with all of you people who think you can. Sit down. Margaret Walker's voice cut through the cafeteria chatter. She looked different, older, frailer, but with steel in her spine. Both of you. Claire's confidence faltered. Margaret, I know exactly what you were doing. Margaret's eyes were on me. Miss Ramirez, I owe you an apology. The cafeteria seemed to hold its breath. Claire's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I may have been hasty in my judgments, Margaret continued. The boy, Ethan, he has the Walker stubborn streak, and his smile. Her voice caught. It's Nathaniel at that age. The DNA test, Claire started, can be wrong, I interrupted, finding my voice. Or tampered with. Margaret's eyes sharpened. What are you suggesting? I pulled out my phone, showed her the evidence I'd gathered. The inconsistencies, the strange signature, the threatening text. Margaret studied it all with the intensity that had built a medical empire. Claire, she said quietly, you had access to the lab that day, didn't you? Your cousin works there? The color drained from Claire's face. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. Margaret stood, every inch the matriarch. I'm stating facts. You will leave this hospital. You will leave my son alone. And if I find out you had anything to do with this. Claire fled, her heels clicking rapid staccato on the linoleum. Margaret watched her go, then turned to me. I've made many mistakes, she said quietly, But I know my grandson when I see him. The real question is, what else don't I know? She left me with a business card, her personal lawyer. For the investigation, she said. And for whatever comes next. For the first time in 11 years, I wasn't fighting alone. The press conference was Margaret's idea, her way of controlling the narrative. But she didn't count on the vultures being hungry for a different story. Saw gold digger targets, Doctor's Dynasty scream the headlines. My face, captured in an unflattering moment of exhaustion, was plastered across every gossip site. They'd found my work history, my single mother status, even my high school yearbook photos. "Mom, why are they saying mean things about you?" Ethan asked, looking at my phone. I gently took it away. "Sometimes people say things that aren't true, baby." But the damage was done. The hospital, citing disruption to patient care, placed me on administrative leave. Our apartment building, suddenly concerned about media attention, suggested we might be happier elsewhere. Ethan's school called about concerns from other parents. I was packing our meager belongings when Ethan made the discovery that changed everything. "Mom, look!" He held up an old shoebox from the closet. Grandma's stuff. My mother had died when Ethan was 3. I'd kept her things but never had the heart to go through them properly. Now, as Ethan pulled out photos and letters, something fell to the floor. A sealed envelope, my name in Nate's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. 11 years too late. "Izzy, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not because I want to be. God, not that. My mother has made things clear. If I don't leave, if I don't end this, she'll destroy your scholarship, blacklist you from every nursing program in the state. I can't let her take your dreams. You're going to be an amazing nurse. Save lives, help people, be everything I know you can be. I love you. I'll love you at Harvard. I'll love you in whatever future she's planned for me. I'll love you forever. But I love you too much to let her hurt you. Forgive me." The letter slipped from my numb fingers. Ethan picked it up, reading with the precociousness that was pure his father. "He loved you," he said simply. "He left because he loved you." I crumbled then, 11 years of anger dissolving into grief. For the girl who'd thought she'd been abandoned. For the boy who'd been forced to choose. For all the years we'd lost to pride and manipulation. Ethan crawled into my lap, his arms fierce around my neck. "It's okay, Mom. We have each other." But his words were slurred, his weight too heavy. I looked down to see his eyes rolling back, his small body convulsing. "Ethan! Ethan!" The letter lay forgotten on the floor as I called 911, my world narrowing to my son's struggling breath. Everything else, Nate, Margaret, the media circus, faded to nothing. Only Ethan mattered. The seizure was worse than the others. As they rushed Ethan into surgery, Nate caught my arms, his face white. "Izzy, I need to tell you something. The DNA test," I ran another one, quietly, at a different lab. I could barely focus. "What?" "He's mine." His voice broke. "God, Izzy, he's ours. Someone tampered with the first test. My mother. She has security footage." It was Claire and someone from the lab. I don't care about that right now." I wrenched away. "Just save him, please." The next hours blurred together. Surgery, waiting, praying to anyone who'd listen. When Ethan finally stabilized, when his eyes fluttered open and found mine, I collapsed. "Hey, Mom," he whispered. "Did I miss anything good?" I cried into his hair. "Just the usual chaos, baby." Over his head, I met Nate's eyes. He'd been there the whole time, using every connection, calling in every favor. Not as the doctor who'd left me, but as the father who'd just found his son. Margaret appeared in the doorway, looking older than I'd ever seen her. "I've called a press conference," she said quietly. "It's time for truth." What followed was a masterclass in controlled demolition. Margaret Walker, pillar of New Orleans society, stood before the cameras and systematically destroyed her own reputation to save ours. She revealed the tampered test results. The security footage of Claire bribing the lab tech, who happened to be her married lover. The threatening messages traced back to Claire's phone. But more than that, she revealed her own sins. 11 years ago, I threatened a young woman to stay away from my son, she said, voice steady despite the tears. I destroyed a love story because I thought I knew better. I was wrong. She looked directly at one camera. Isabella Ramirez is the best mother I've ever seen. She raised my grandson alone, with grace and strength I couldn't manage with all my resources. I'm ashamed it took me this long to see it. The narrative shifted like a tide. Claire was arrested. The lab tech lost his license. The truth, messy and painful as it was, finally saw daylight. That evening, Nate found me on the hospital's roof garden. Ethan was sleeping, finally stable, finally safe. Izzy, I read your letter, I interrupted. The one you never sent. His face crumpled. I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you. I was a coward. You were 22, I said softly. We were kids, Nate. Kids who loved each other. Kids who got caught in something bigger than us. He moved closer, tentative. What now? I thought of Ethan, of 11 years of single motherhood, of trust broken and slowly, carefully being rebuilt. Now? I watched the sun set over the city that had been our battleground. Now we see. 1 year later, Mom, hurry up, we're gonna be late. I smiled at Ethan's impatience, adjusting my coat against the spring breeze. My son, healthy, happy, seizure-free for 8 months, bounced on his toes outside our new apartment. Where's the fire, kid? I ruffled his hair. Dad said if we're late, Coach won't let me start. Dad. The word still made my heart skip, even after months of careful co-parenting. Nate had earned it, not through grand gestures or his family's money, but through showing up. Every practice, every doctor's appointment, every nightmare and math homework and scraped knee. The field was already buzzing when we arrived. Nate stood with the other coaches, but his eyes found us immediately. The smile he gave Ethan was pure joy. The one he gave me was more complicated. Hope mixed with patience mixed with something I wasn't ready to name. There's Grandma! Ethan pointed to the stands. Margaret Walker sat primly on the bleachers, designer purse clutched like armor. But when Ethan waved, her face transformed. The Ice Queen had melted for her grandson, becoming the grandmother she'd never thought she'd be. Izzy? She nodded as I sat beside her. We'd found our rhythm, not friends exactly, but allies united by love for the same little boy. He's excited, I offered. He has his father's competitive streak. She paused. And your determination. We watched Ethan take the field, all knobby knees and fierce concentration. When he scored his first goal, we both leaped up, dignity forgotten. Later, as the team celebrated with pizza, Margaret pulled me aside. I'm sick, she said quietly. Cancer, stage 3. The world tilted. Margaret, I'm telling you because there's something else. She pressed an envelope into my hands. The family's investigating my medical records. They found irregularities in my blood type, genetic markers that don't. She straightened her shoulders. Nathaniel isn't my biological son. I stared at her. What? IVF mix-up, they think, 40 years ago. I've been protecting a legacy that was never mine to protect. Her laugh was bitter. Ironic, isn't it? I destroyed your life over bloodlines that weren't even real. But you raised him, I said slowly. You're his mother. Her eyes filled. Am I? After everything I've done? I thought of Ethan, of nature versus nurture, of the choices that define us. Biology doesn't make a parent, love does. Showing up does. She gripped my hand. Take care of them. Both of them. That night, I stood at the crossroads again. Nate had asked me to dinner. Just us, no Ethan, no past, just possibility. The invitation lay on my counter like a question. Through the window, I watched him teaching Ethan to juggle a soccer ball in the courtyard. My son's laughter echoed off the walls, pure and unguarded. Nate caught my eye and smiled, patient, hopeful, real. I picked up my phone, then set it down. Picked it up again. Trust was a choice. Love was a choice. The future was a choice. And maybe, just maybe, I was ready to choose.